Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Chaos Child. This time, we're going to be starting Nono's route. I believe this might be our final route for the series. I'm looking forward to seeing what's happening, and I have a couple ideas of what we'll be digging into. I'll start with that, and then we'll get right to the route. Yeah, I think this route will be about Senri herself, and we'll probably learn more about this, because when we answer the question as to whether or not what Nono thinks about Senri, she says she's not the killer in this chapter, and she also lies about saying that Senri Minamisawa died during the earthquake. So I think Nono knows something about Senri Minamisawa, and I think we might find out during this route what she is. Maybe she's taking care of her somewhere secret. Something's going on. It's a little bit curious. Like the correct answers to these questions are curious, and they bring questions up, which is why I think we should start the video here, because this is like my first. This is my first thoughts on the route. As we're going to reach the start of the branch of the route, we have a couple weird answers where Nono, who isn't doing any investigating of the project at this part, like at this point, she isn't really doing any investigation, but she somehow seems to know more than she should about Senri based on what she's telling us. So I think there's something going on with Nono and Senri, and we're gonna have to find out. Chapter 9, it begins. Alright, let's set the stage for where things are. We're going to start about a half a scene early. So where we are right now, we have narrowed down the suspects from everyone in existence to either Nono, ourselves, or Sarika. Our character has found out that Nono just left to go somewhere. He doesn't know where. And she's found out something about the murders, and he's desperately listening, trying to figure out what the fuck's going on. Trying to figure out what in the first video gives away who the killer is. We are currently following Nono as she goes to the school at night, after having found something and asked Sarika to meet up with her, which, as you might be able to imagine, is pretty damn risky considering our list of suspects for doing all of these killings are Sarika, Nono, and ourselves. And that's two of them meeting up at the same time. If you assume that you're not the killer, that means one of those two people is probably going to be killed by the killer. I mean, good news for you, whoever survives, probably the killer. Bad news is, someone's probably gonna die. So, at night, the academy was an ominous, dark silhouette amidst the dazzling lights of Shibuya. It was as if it knew what was coming. Usually, there was a guard in the room attached to the front gate, but for some reason, she couldn't see him. Now remember, this is Nono's route, and Nono's route is starting here, which means it is likely that she survives this encounter instead of dying, because it would be really weird if it's their route and they died at the very start of their route. So we're probably going to follow Nono around as she does some serious business investigating. The air felt tense. She shook off her uncertainty and went inside. She went into the dark newspaper club room and turned on the fluorescent lights. Nono had decided to wait here for her call, but when she arrived, she found something unexpected. It was the map they'd put up to analyze the case, which had been taken down a while before. It was back on the wall, and there were several new pictures and pieces of information she hadn't seen before. This was probably Takuru's doing. He'd been continuing to hunt the killer in secret too. Not so secret if it's posted on a wall in the place he hangs out all the time. Kuru, you're a liar too. She felt herself letting her guard down as she thought of Takuru and quickly shook her head. She brought a chair close to the wall and sat down and stared at the map. You can literally see killer was talking to Ito alone in the room, and 3 pins. One of them is the killer. Ito. We have it narrowed down to 3 people. In fact, this is an updated map. Very nice. Usually they don't update the map asset, and it's usually like the blank one or like a generic one, but this one's pretty close to accurate. Curious had said something once.
けど、最近はその事件自体が逆に僕らを追ってきてるような、そんな気がするんだよ。
But lately, it feels like the case is chasing us instead. Well, I got some mixed news for you. It is. That also means that it's probably someone associated to you. Looking back, several things had happened that could only be explained that way. Kurusu decided that Takuru's life was in danger because he was a psychic and that she was going to save him. But if the killer was just after Takuru's life, there were more direct ways to go about it. Instead, they got the Return of the New Generation Madness killings and what happened to Yui. It would have been easy for them to take Takuru's life. Just like Takuru had said, the case seemed to be slowly closing in on them from all sides, which meant... They aren't after Takuru's life, they're after something else involving him. That was the only thing that made sense, but she couldn't figure out what it could be. But then she saw a piece of paper on the board. Haida had Minamisawa's ID card. The fact sent her mind reeling. One of the reasons she'd figured out it was Riko Haida. But I know who it is that's working behind the scenes, trying to achieve whatever their goal is. It all started with the ID card Senri Minamisawa had. That was, without a doubt, her real card. And no one but Kurusu could have known where it was. All of Senri's things lay beneath the memorial. Kurusu had put them there herself. All of Senri's family had died in the earthquake. She had no surviving relatives, so after the memorial had gone up, Kurusu had put them there. Even Kawahara, the other boy who'd been playing with them, didn't know that. It was a secret about Senri only Kurusu knew. But Riko Haida had held that secret. No, she'd been given it. How is this possible? Mind reading. The power to see others' thoughts and memories. Kikita, the victim in the revolving dead case, had supposedly possessed it. The killer used it to read Kurusu's mind, and that was how they were able to find Senri's ID card. In other words, it's someone I've made contact with. Thanks for not telling anyone, by the way, Kurusu. It really helps the police and other people find out who the killer is faster when you keep secrets that clearly identify who the killer is. Now that she'd found what was hidden in the Don't Look at Me video, she had no choice but to fight them. She probably made contact with them more than once or twice, because they were one of her closest friends. How long have I really known you, I wonder? She suddenly remembered their smile. Her whisper echoed off the walls with no one to hear it. The countless after-school hours they spent together were some of the most important times in Kurusu's life. Meaningless conversations, shops they'd browse together, but she couldn't think of any special memories. And that was very painful for her, because that was only a sign of how close they were. But I have to ask, I have to find out, even if the answer meant things would never be the same. And there's one more thing. Remember, since we're getting this from Nono's perspective, we know Nono is not the killer at this point. So, even if Nono doesn't know, it's either we're, like, from her perspective, it's either Senri or we're the killer, right? Her thoughts went deeper. There was one more thing she had to ask. A.H. Tokyo General Hospital. That was where Takuru had seen Senri being experimented on 8 years ago. She'd been tied to a chair and slowly going mad when she'd seen a boy, Takuru, that she didn't know. She had no time to figure out who he might be. She shouted, "Help me," without even understanding what was going on. And the boy heard it and ran. Was he surprised at the horrible scene he saw, or afraid? Probably both. And Kurusu couldn't blame him for either. At the time, he was just a 4th grader, a 10-year-old boy. There was no way he could have saved Senri. That's why Senri didn't hate him. I guess she knew Senri talked to her about this afterwards? Kurusu knew that. He tried to tell Takuru many times and failed about her one big mistake. That was why she knew, and why she'd always been suspicious. 8 years ago, when that boy had witnessed Senri being experimented on, he was alone. He was outside the room where the experiment was being done. Just a single timid boy peeking through a tiny crack in the door. There was no one next to him.
けど、タクルはあの時、二人で目撃したと言っている。
But Takuru said he saw it with another person. I mean, do you have this information firsthand? Otherwise, you'd have no clue, because you're Nono, not Senri, right? Or is that the twist? She dyes her hair? She dyes her hair and it's actually Senri? That'd be kind of weird, but alright. That's a weird phrasing. Alright. At first she thought Takuru was just confused. Why would you assume Takuru is confused and not Senri, who's being tortured, missing something? Alright, I'm slightly suspicious of that still, but alright. He'd been in a coma for over a year and he was simply mistaken, but then she said the same thing, that they were together. It had been a thorn in her heart for a long, long time. Dude, like, Senri probably missed her.
あの時、タクルと一緒にいたの?
You really with Takuru then? I know she's like an illusion, but shouldn't the assumption be that, that Takuru missed that? Or that Senri missed it? When Takuru's there and clearly stating it's true? She reached out toward the computer, but in the end, she let her hands float in the air. She'd seen the video dozens of times. It wouldn't be any different here than in Albador. Nor would the secret it concealed, nor would it change what she was about to do. There was no changing any of it, it seemed. Took a long time before they called her. It was almost midnight. But Kurusu didn't get frustrated. She simply waited calmly. She assumed it would be around this time. They were probably waiting for November 4th, the day of the New Generation Madness.
そして私を。
And then you die. Then they were going to do to her what they did to the other victims. Breaking their chain, though. I guess they find out she has power somehow, though, so that works. She felt her phone vibrating and took it out of her pocket. Takuru was still calling despite the late hour. He'd sent text messages, too. Of course, Kurusu hasn't answered at all. Was it him again? She thought, as she looked at the screen. Oh. The name she'd been waiting for had appeared on the screen. She answered the call and put the phone up to her ear.
もしもし。
Hello? She heard a voice she knew well on the other end. Sorry to keep you waiting, she said.
いいのよ。そんなに待ってないから。それにここへ呼んだのは私の方だし。
No, it's okay. I haven't been waiting that long. And I was the one who called you here. Yeah. About the roof thing?
それじゃあ屋上でいいかしら。待ってるわね。
She ended the call and went to put the phone back into her pocket, but suddenly she stopped and called up a picture on the screen. It was the photo of her family at Albadorum, the same as the one that was Takuru's treasure. She stared at it for a while, then placed the phone on the edge of the table, the place where she always sat when she was with the newspaper club. If something happened to her, she wanted someone else to have it. And then she looked around the room and bowed.
お世話になりました。
Thanks for everything. She turned off the lights and the room became as dark as the abyss. Don't act like you're never coming back. He wasn't by her side to tell her that. Up we go, the stairs to the roof. Oh, but first we have, this scene. Damn it. I was pulling my hair in frustration. Why is Kurusu better at research than you are? I had already watched the video 100 times. It was, of course, the video of the Utani Don't Look at Me victim. He'd wept tears of blood, lost his arm, turned his desk red, and died. Not only was I watching a shocking, gory video over and over again, I was searching desperately for what Kurusu had found. I felt like I was going crazy, but he never associates the audio. Oh, yeah, right. She's playing the audio at like 500% volume, and he's like, why the fuck is she doing this? So he instantly turns it to 1%. As you can see down here, it's like clearly the blue, as you can see on like the video interface, the blue is clearly no longer full. He turns it down because it's too loud, and he never even thinks for 1 second that it could be intentional. Like she wouldn't notice how loud the video was. Like she's deaf. Come on, man.
Kurusu.
Kurusu, answer me,
出て
Kurusu.
くれよ、Kurusu.
Each time I finished watching the video, I called her phone, wasting precious minutes. But it's not going to say wasting precious minutes. She never answered, though. I slammed my finger down on the end call button and started up the video again. Maybe it was something in the user comments, not the video itself. I thought it might be, so I checked everyone, but nothing struck me as unusual. It was just a flood of meaningless comments going from right to left. And only a few of them were actually worried about Utani, which pissed me off even more. The hell am I supposed to find in this video? I expanded it to fill the screen. I tried slowing it down, but there was nothing. Had Kurusu found something here?
Takuru-san.
There was a hesitant knock at the door, and Uki came in. She probably had just been crying with Yuto. She was rubbing her swollen red eyes.
Yuto.
Where's Yuto?
先生が帰ってきて見てくれてます。お薬を飲んだのですぐに眠れるだろうって。
The doctor came back and is looking at him. He took his medicine, so he'll go to sleep soon, he says. Her voice was still a little teary.
何かわかりましたか?
Did you figure something out?
いや、
No,
ダメなんだ。
I got nothing. The Kuru missing the most obvious hint in existence. Uki looked very concerned as she watched me grit my teeth.
私、ののさんが何かを発見したとき、近くにいました。
I was close to Nono when she found something.
ああ。
Yeah.
なんだか、いつもの冷静なののさんじゃなくて、だから、とても心配です。
He wasn't as calm as she usually was, so I'm very worried. Uki seemed to be remembering what had happened. Seeing her only made me more worried.
クルスのやつ、どんな
What
感
was
じ
she
だったん
like?
だ？
それが、突然立ち上がって、そんなのは嘘だとか、ありえないとか、
She suddenly
最
stood
初
up.
すごくうろたえていて、
She said it couldn't be, that it was impossible. At first, she was very shocked.
うろたえた？
Shocked?
はい、顔色も真っ青だったんです。
Yes, she'd gone pale. Shocked and pale? Did that mean she knew the killer? And it was someone she didn't want to be the killer?
やっぱり僕が。
So it was me or Onoe? And then I shook my head.
ごめんなさい。
Sorry.
本当はそこで私がののさんの力に慣れていれば、
I'd been able to help her then. This never would have happened.
あ、いや、それはいいん
Oh,
だ。
it's not your fault. Alright. I tried my best to keep her from sensing my panic as I slowly asked her another question. For now, I wanted any hint, no matter how small.
ウキ、クルスは動画を見ていて何かに気づいたんだよな。
So
それで
Kurusu
その
watched
シ
the
ーンを
video
何
and
度も
figured
見直
something
してい
out,
た。
right? And she watched that scene over and over?
多分そうだったと思います。
それがどのあたりかわ
What
から
part
ないん
was
だっ
it?
たな。
Or, you don't know. Right. I'm
す
sorry.
みません。
She looked down towards the ground. I quickly shook my hand at her.
いや、責めてるとかじゃないん
I'm
だ。
not
そう
blaming
じ
you.
ゃなくて。
I just... What should I do? What should I ask to get the hint I need?
ダメだ、わからない。
It's no good. I don't know. Tell me, Kurusu. Where's the clue? Come on, tell me.
情けないっすね、先輩。
Oh, you're such a loser, Miyashiro. And then, I heard a voice behind Uki. I looked up and saw Arimura playing with her twin tails.
なんすかその顔。泣きそうじゃないですか。
What's with that look? You look like you're about to cry.
うるさい。お
Shut up.
前に
It's
関
got
係ないだ
nothing
ろ
to。do with you. I yelled at her even though I knew I shouldn't. And Arimura laughed. Would you ever yell at Ito like that? Would you ever even speak to him in such a rude way?
関係なくないっすよ。そろそ
He
ろ
kinda does,
11
but-
月4日になるんですけど、ウキ
Sure
の
does.
そばにくっついてろって言ったの先輩でしょ。
It's almost the 4th and you're the one who told me to stay with Uki.
あ、
Oh, right.
すまない。
I'm sorry.
あと、
クルス先輩のこと実は結構好きなんすよね、私。
Just so you know, I really like Kurusu, so telling you it's got
関
nothing
係
to do
な
with
い
me
とか言わ
pisses
れ
me
ると
off.
すっげームカつく。
He gets really tilted by that, apparently.
Eh?
Armor's face suddenly became serious, and then she yelled,
しっかりしなさい。そんなに焦ってたら気がつくものも気がつかないでしょ、この
"Oh,
バ
I'll take my own spin on this." And she says, "Get a hold of yourself, you dumb bitch. If you're panicking that much, you're not gonna notice anything, you moron."
クルス先輩なら絶対に言うと思いま
That's
す。
what Kurusu would say, I think.
有村。
Alright, Mura.
ねえウキ、
Hey,
ク
Uki.
ルス先輩が何かにびっくりして、でその後映像を何度も見直したんだよね。
You said Kurusu got very surprised, and then she watched the video again and again, right? Right?
はい。
Yes, that's right.
その時ってどんな様子だったわけ？何かに気づいて驚いた後だよ。
What was she acting like then, after she acted surprised? Arimura put her hand on Uki's shoulder and started to ask more questions.
ののさん、すごく真剣な顔になって怖いくらいでした。
She looked very serious. It was kind of scary.
うん。で、
Yes, and?
イヤフォンにじっと耳を澄ませる感じで、こう何かを一生懸命聞こうとしてるというか。
She seemed to be listening carefully on her headphones, as if she was trying to make something out.
うん。
Yeah.
Huh?
Oh. Took you long enough. And then I realized I'd missed something very simple, probably the most obvious hint I've ever seen.
僕は今まで何を
What
や
the
って
hell
た
have I been doing? Arimura was right. I've been panicking too much because of Kurusu.
クルスは昨日もこの動画を見てたじゃないか。
Kurusu was watching the video yesterday. That's why she and I got in that fight. But she wasn't wearing headphones back then. And the computer had been set at maximum volume. What if that was deliberate? Obviously, it's
どう
deliberate.
しました先輩？
What is it, Misha?
音だ。
The sound. Yeah, obviously, buddy.
画像じゃない。
It's not the video. There's something in the sound. That's why Kurusu wore headphones and set the sound to maximum.
有村、とりあえず聞いてくれ、これ。
Alright, bro, listen to this. I handed her the stereo headset that was connected to the computer. When I saw she put them on, I set the volume to maximum and pressed play.
申し訳ない。この安売りセールしていた生地がありえないくらい硬くて。
So sorry, I bought this cheese on sale and it's so incredibly hard. Harry Murray's like, oh my god. I'm going, oh my god, in my head, by the way. That was like super loud. The sound was so loud, she ripped the headphones off her ears. And then she threw them at me.
ちょっと、私の耳をぶっ壊すつもりですか？
Are you trying to destroy my ears? My ears are in pain.
普通そうな
It
るはず
hurts.
だ。
Right? That's what you'd normally say.
当たり前でしょう
Of
が。
course it is. That's right. Normally you wouldn't focus on anything with the sound this loud. In other words, what Kurusu had been listening to
音がほとんど入ってない部分だ。
was the part where there's barely any sound. Sorry for that. Sorry for that auditory assault. But, yeah, there's his evidence. I moved the video back to the start and played it at maximum volume. God. Play the quiet parts, you...
はい。ではいつも通り3分くらい募集をかけるんで適当によろです。
My ears, I swear. Okay, I'm gonna take 3 minutes for questions. Get to it. The scene with him in front of the computer was too loud to listen to.
なんだよ。生放送中だっつうの。
Come on, I'm streaming now. The sound got a little better when he left the computer, but it still heard at maximum volume. It was hard to imagine her listening to this part over and over again. Utani disappeared out of frame, and I stopped being able to hear what he was saying. This was the part where people thought the killer had come in. But everyone from the police to internet users all over the country had thought it would lead to the killer. It had been listened to millions of times in all. Who was in this part? Someone would have found it already.
この先、確か怖いんですよね。私、あっち行ってます。
It's scary after
行こ
this,
う
right?
ウキ。
I'll go over there. Let's go, Uki.
でも
But, huh? Arimura pulled Uki away by the hand. Uki turned around and looked at me concerned.
ありがとう、ウキ。
Thanks, Uki.
もう大丈夫だ
I'm。fine now.
有村もありがとうな。
Thanks, Arimura.
必ずクルス先輩を見つけてくださいね。
Make sure you find Kurusu, okay? And they bitch
二人
out.
も4日になったら絶対に離れる
You
ね
know, when it's life and death, you'd think people would be willing to see someone be killed in a live stream. It's like, oh, this could save someone's life, I'll watch it. Yeah, don't get separated once the fourth starts, okay? Even in the bathroom? What? What?
何かあったら大声で叫べ。すぐに行く。
Yell loud if something happens. I'll be right there.
お願いします。
Thank you.
期待しないで待ってます。
Sure, but I'm not expecting much. Once I'd made sure that Arimura and Uki had gone up to the dining room, I started to check all the parts of the video with the white noise. Or with white noise, sorry. Not here. Not here either. No, there was nothing here. Here's the door opening. Or in this scene. Nothing here either. There are small sounds mixed in with the irritating white noise. It was harder than it looked to focus your nerves on them. My hearing started to fade and I started to lose my sense of balance. My head felt heavy and suddenly I had a terrible headache. I grit my teeth and thought through the pain. Kurusu had gone through this and in the end she found something. I had to do the same, right? And then I heard a tiny noise. I paused the video without even realizing I'd done so.
今の
What was that?
は
I put my finger on the earphone in my right ear and pushed it deeper so I could hear better. And then I used my left hand to move the video back and press play again.
なんだ
Between the chopping sound. What is this sound? It was the scene where Utani was cutting what he described as cheese beneath the dim fluorescent lights. In between the sounds of the knife, I could hear something else.
もう一回
One more time. I played the video again.
この音
I know this sound. I've heard this before. I knew that sound. I'd heard it very recently, very close to me. I played it again and again. I concentrated everything I had on picking up the tiny sound from amidst the white noise. What? I finally realized what it was, and suddenly I felt a cold pillar of ice pressed against my spine. You could call it sheer terror if you wanted to. My hands shook and sweat poured out of every pore in my body. It felt like the room was spitting.
嘘
Can't be real. It can't be real, can it?
くそ
Damn it. I slammed my shaking hands down on the desk and the pain finally got them to do what I wanted. It took me several tries, but I finally managed to open my Pokécom and power it on. I yanked out the headphones of the PC and plugged an audio cable into my Pokécom.
嘘だ
No. No. I kept screwing it up, but managed to load that scene into an audio editing software. I set the volume to maximum and set it on repeat. And then I hit the play button, my hands still shaking. Kurusu can figure this out without the audio program, but our character struggles a bit still.
こんなの嘘だ
It can't be real. I slammed the Pokécom down on the floor and called her on my phone. The phone rang and rang. Once, twice, 3 times.
やっぱりクルスはこ
Did
の音に
Kurusu
気
know
づい
that?
て
I like how his first... He's like, I should take action. But he calls someone he knows isn't going to pick up. Weird choice, buddy. It kept ringing. 6, 7, 8. It was as if she was ignoring me. You called her like 30 times already, bro. No, she's not picking up. You called her after every time you watch the video. It's a 3-minute video and you watch it for like 6 hours, dude. She's not going to pick up now. I ended the call and this time I pulled up Kurusu's number. Oh, it's Sarika, at least. I tapped the call button, but I got the same result.
なんでだよ
Why? They kept ignoring me. No matter how long I waited, I couldn't hear Kurusu's voice. Why do you expect Kurusu to pick up at random? She's literally ignored you for like an entire day. Damn it all. I hung up the phone and ran out of the room without even knowing where I was going. November 4th, 2015, Wednesday. The roof was normally a place for students to laugh and talk, but under the cold moonlight the empty benches seemed silent and sad. Kurusu looked at the benches and shivered once more. It wasn't just because of the cold, it was because she realized this place was truly empty. Of course it was. No one was allowed here at this hour. It was an isolated place where the warm light didn't reach, only the cold light did. No matter what happened here, the rest of the world wouldn't care. It wouldn't exist outside this place. It's too perfect, maybe. It was so perfect for her that it was almost sad, Kurusu thought. While Kurusu was waiting for her to arrive, she hadn't been thinking about the case. Strangely, she'd been thinking about her family and friends. What had she always said to her family before she'd left to come here in the morning? Did they smile? The younger students who helped with the student council's work? The talks she'd had with her classmates about the latest fads? The brief fights in the lunchroom forgotten as soon as the bell rang to tell them to go back to class? Each time she started to lapse too deep into her memories, a cold wind would blow and pull her back to reality. And then she realized something with a self-abasing laugh. She knew it. The reason Nono wasn't thinking about the case was because that part of her was sure she already knew everything. If she asked, she would get the fatal answer that would lay bare the truth. And once she heard the answer... A strong wind blew as if to carry away her thoughts, and she closed her eyes for a moment. You hear the door open behind her, and when she opened them, she heard the sound of a rusty door opening.
Non-chan?
Aw. Her lips twisted a little when she heard her say it.
Non-chan.
Non-chan, huh? Made her go mad to hear herself called that. She felt heat rising from the bottom of her stomach. It was time to begin.
本当に悪かったわね。
I'm
こ
real
んな
sorry
と
to
こ
bring
ろ
you
に
up
呼び
here.
出して。
I don't think she's sorry at all.
ね。おのえ。
Oh, no way? We got our killer confrontation.
Non-chan?
Oh, no. Did she realize Kurusu was using a different name? Or did she sense something instinctively? Dawn's really bad at this whole assassination deal. Sarika repeated herself, this time with a suspicious look on her face. She tried to get closer, but a glance from Kurusu stopped her. Sarika froze.
答えなさい。あなたなの？
Answer. Was it you?
何が？
Was what me?
答えなさい。
Answer. Kurusu repeated her words to her former best friend, the one person outside her family she called by first name. But Sarika's expression didn't change. It was the same face Kurusu knew so well, the same look as when Sarika brought a crepe and was wondering what was inside. Thinking back, the two of them went shopping together all the time. Onoe had insisted she looked fine without makeup, and Kurusu had insisted on buying her some anyway. It had been a lot of fun. They were always together in the club. He'd argued against Akuru's reckless plans and stopped Kazuki from pounding the walls, and the two of them had always been amazed at the stupid things Ito said. They'd always been laughing together, though. But
第一の事件。あそこにいたのはあなたよね。
you were there at the scene of the first crime, weren't you?
わかんないよ、のんちゃん。さっきから何を？
I don't know what you're talking about, Non. Where's this coming from?
映像に音が入ってた。私のよく知ってる音がね。
There's a sound on the video, a sound I knew well. In the Don't Look at Me video, she'd heard the strange sound that Sarika's Garo Froggy made. A dead giveaway. Sarika had a bad habit of unconsciously fiddling with it whenever she was focusing on something. Kurusu took a step forward to stop herself from falling over, and glared at Sarika with a challenge in her eyes. That's right, Kurusu was glaring at Sarika.
ちょっと、の
Wait,
ん
no.
ちゃん。
答えなさいって言ってる
I
でしょ。
said, answer me. Sarika staggered back at the sound of her loud footsteps, and finally her expression changed. There was fear in it.
ユイは私たちの家族から消えてしまった。死んでしまったの。もう帰ってこないの。
Yui isn't part of my family anymore. She's dead. She's not coming back.
どうしてあんなことをしたの？
Why did you do that? Sarika stayed quiet, the terrified expression still on her face. This is like the least terrified expression I've ever seen. She seems like she's less terrified and more like, okay. This is like the robot face. A face you give when you're like, I barely care. but I'll just look like a moderately sad or neutral. Was she really terrified by Kurusu, or was she trying to fool her? Obviously the fooling part. Or... Kurusu took another step
8
forward.
年前のあの日、あの病院の地下にあなたはいたの？タクルと一緒に本当にいたの？
On that day, 8 years ago, did you really go down to that hospital basement? Were you really there with Takuru?
答えられないわよね。だって
You
あな
can't
たは
answer me,
絶
can
対
you?
にあそこにはい
Because
な
you
かっ
weren't
たも
there.
の。
I know that better than anyone.
それじゃあなたは一体誰？
Who are you? Kurusu's question was something she'd wondered about ever since Onoe had said she'd gone into that basement with him. It was the one last thing she'd been unsure of, which she'd kept quiet about to protect her own secret. Until a little while ago, it seemed like it didn't matter. She was willing to go her whole life without finding out because Sarika Onoe was someone she loved, but now...
言いなさい。あなたは誰？
Tell me, who are you? But Sarika said nothing, not a word. Did she really not know anything? The thought crossed her mind for a moment, but she quickly kicked it away. That was just what she wanted to believe. She had suspicions about Sarika for a long time, but she ignored them because she was too afraid to ask, and the result had been Yui's death. Well, if in a life and death situation you're unafraid or unwilling to act and someone dies, it's kind of your fault. Kurusu raised her hands up and brought them together, as if offering up a prayer. And then, the next moment... He brought them down hard and straight, as if swinging a sword. Sarika moved back just a little. Her movement might have looked like pure reflex, but Kurusu didn't miss it. Which meant...
やっぱり
So I was right, huh?
そうなのね。
Easiest way to check if somebody is a psychic or not. Boot up your D sword and see if they notice it. That was the answer to everything, which is... It's also curious. So Ito actually can see, based on the previous route, Uki's route, Ito can actually see D swords, so he's actually a psychic. We just don't know what his power is. I'm curious if the true ending or this route will tell us what his power is, because he was able to avoid and respond to Uki's, he was able to evade and respond to Uki's D sword. And Kurusu is using it as proof that Sarika is a gigalomaniac. That was the answer to everything. So that was it, huh?
だったのね。
And now she's 100% more serious. Less sad and more serious. Less sad and more blank. Sarika's face became blank and expressionless. She didn't frown or sigh at her own failure. Her manner became that of a beautiful doll. You should really follow up your attacks, Kurusu.
セリ
Even if it's better to keep someone on the defensive and hope they slip up rather than taking a swing and being like, well, I guess I missed. I'll just stand here. She was right. She'd been ready for it, but she still couldn't help but cry. She tried to stop herself. She grit her teeth, but Sarika's gaze wasn't fixed on her anymore. She stood legs apart as if judging the distance between herself and the thing in the seemingly empty space between them.
間違いない。
There's no question. She saw it. And now it was Sarika's turn to look into her eyes. Her eyes were different than Kurusu had ever seen before, as if they saw everything.
違う。
No, that's not right. Suddenly, Kurusu knew. It wasn't just a simile. Her eyes did see everything. That was telepathy. A terrible twisted power exposing all your most treasured secrets. She heard the sound of herself clenching her jaw, and she forgot the tears and turned herself over to the rage that was boiling within her. Again, letting someone who you know has telepathy have like all the breathing space in the world so they can manipulate your mind or predict or read what your action is like the worst idea. It had been 6 years since she'd real booted it, and it was almost sad how easily it came into her hand. The D-sword. A monstrous blade only those with the power to make delusions real could wield. She refused to look away from the light she'd never wanted to see again as she pointed the blade at her opponent.
あなたよね。南沢千里を使っていたのは。
You were the one who was using Senri Minamisawa, weren't you? Wow, she just did nothing personal, kiddo. I love that. I don't want to hear that from you, Nono Kurusu. Her voice made Kurusu shiver. And a blade even more wicked than her voice appeared in Sarika's hands, opening like a blooming poisonous flower. It was beautiful. For a moment she was blinded by the beauty of the weapon. She forgot it threatened to cut into her soft flesh. Sarika leapt off the ground. The distance between them was closed in an instant. Kurusu brought down her own sword as hard as she could without even time to follow her movements. Well, we know how this fight usually ends. Let's see if it changed. And as she screamed...
ごめんね。
I'm sorry. She could hear her voice. By the time she realized she was talking to Takuru, it was already too late. The light flashed in front of her as if driving the thought from her mind. Boom. So... Why Sarika? So something has to have changed here. Because, as far as I can tell, that's exactly the same as it went on the normal route. So, Nono's dead. Nono's dead here. As, we don't actually interact with anything. Do we kill Sarika right away or something? The same thought kept going through my head like I was an idiot. I couldn't think. Why? What was she doing at a murder scene? Damn it. The saliva caught in my throat. I moaned in pain. It took a lot of effort to keep myself from falling over. Damn it, I didn't have time to waste here. I stopped as I heard a sound. I was in front of a familiar place, but it wasn't the one I'd been coming to. I was on my way from Alba Dorm to Sarika's condo in Daikanayama. What was that? I saw something strange in the corner of my eye and looked up at the school building. The school at night was an imposing sight, and on top, I could see a feeble light like a fluorescent bulb that was about to burn out. Bulb that was about to burn out? I think I said ball. I started to run, dragging my feet forward as I went. I raced up the stairs of the building without even bothering to take off my shoes. The lights in the yard illuminated my face with a certain rhythm as I ran, but that light was something different. That strange, dull light. It was the light of a D-sword. I made it to the top of the stairs and slammed straight into the door. I yanked it open, trying my best not to think about what I'd find beyond. Blood everywhere. Maybe Sarika's dead? Maybe this should be where it branches, about here. I stared in shock at what I saw beneath the moonlight. I couldn't comprehend what I was seeing. We're a couple seconds late. Kurusu was panting heavily, her face twisted in pain, and holding a tall D-sword in her hands. Man, I wouldn't call it tall, I'd call it fat. It's like 2 feet wide and like a foot long. It's like 2 feet wide and 2.5 feet long, man. There was red liquid splattered all around the rooftop. It was probably her blood. Sarika was attacking her with a D-sword of her own. I'd never seen Sarika look like that before. So, if this was the Uki route, if this was Ito fighting with a sword, he would have, without hesitation, dove in and killed whoever was attacking Ito. But since neither of these is Ito, he's just gonna watch the duel. Kurusu is just barely keeping up, so he's watching as Kurusu is potentially dying here, and he's just watching, alright? I had no idea why she had a D-sword, but the design of her sword itself was a combination of blade and shield, and it was just barely keeping her alive. Good news is the sword's indestructible, so she can block with those weird-ass little arm guards, right? As long as it's not at an angle that she'll get killed, or he'll injure her hand, right?
Kurusu!
Kurusu, oh no way!
タクルどうして来たの？逃げなさい、早く！
Why did you come here? Run! Hurry!
お前こそ何やってんだよ
The hell are you
なん
doing?
でディソードなんか持ってんだよ
Why do you have a D-sword? First looked at her D-sword, then at my face, then down at her feet.
そうか。宮代にはまだ話してないんだな。このまがいものめ。
So you
だ
didn't
っ
tell
た
me
ら
Ashiro
私
yet, huh?
が今ここでぶちまけてやろう。
Okay, fake. I'll tell him myself then.
おのえ
Oh no! Bruce struck without warning. She was a different person than I'd ever seen before. The two twisted blades collided with the sound of metal screeching against metal. Both refused to back down. As I recall, if two D-swords collide, you get to see the other person's memories, right?
いつもいつもめんどくさい女だとは思っていたが、理想度まで鬱陶しい。
Always thought you were annoying, but even your D-sword's
あな
obnoxious.
たこそ困ったディソードを持っているみたいね。
What about you? Your D-sword looks like it's got problems of its own, huh? What? It's like a regular-ass sword. Come again?
私ではあなたにかなわない。力も違う。それにあなたの思考盗撮で考えを全て読まれてしまう。
I know I can't beat you. My power is different, and your mind reading is telling you everything, I think.
でも気づいているのかしら？あなたのディソード。こうしていると私のディソードを通して思考が逆流してくるわよ。
Did you notice? Your D-sword's feeding me back your own thoughts.
何？
What? Nani?
そう、
That's right.
あなたの
I
思
can
考
tell
が
what you're
ね。
thinking. As long as we keep clashing. Sarika didn't seem to have realized this because she pulled away her D-sword in shock. As she did, she jumped backwards.
バカな。
Impossible. Until now, she'd been completely expressionless like a crazy murderer, but for the first time, I saw doubt in her eyes.
このディソードが私自身の思考まで盗撮して
My
伝
D-sword
播さ
reads
せ
my
て
own
しまう。
thoughts and shares them?
おかげであなたのこと全部わかったわ。
And now I know
こ
all
れでお
about
あいこね。
So we're even.
さあ
So, what
ど
will
う
you
する
do?
の？私を殺したいんでしょ？だったら殺せばいいわ。
You want to kill me, right? So, come and do it.
今すぐにタクルの目の前で。それがタクルのしたいことなんでしょ？だったら私は喜んで殺されてあげるわ。
This new dialogue? Is this all new dialogue? Kill me in front of Takura. That's what he wants, right? If it is, I'll gladly let you kill me. I don't remember the specifics of this dialogue here. Kurusu. What did she say? It was what I wanted? I wanted her to kill Kurusu? The hell did that mean?
あなたにはタクルの心がわかるのよね。タクルが私を殺してほしいって本当にそう思ってるならやりなさい。
You can read Takuru's mind, can't you? If he really wants you to kill me, then do it. Do it.
どうしたの？
What's wrong? Not gonna
殺
do
さ
it.
ないの？
Bruce held her D-sword in one hand and spread the other out to the side as if to demonstrate how vulnerable she was. But Sarika didn't attack her.
セリカ、あなたの考えてることは矛盾してるわ。
Sarika, what you're thinking doesn't make sense.
矛盾？は？どこが矛盾してると言うんだ？
It doesn't make sense? Why not? It's internally inconsistent, obviously.
あなたはこう思ってる。
You think that you
自分は
exist To give
タクルにやりたい
Takuru
ことを与
something he
え
wants
それを
to
叶えるために存在しているって
and help him achieve it. Interesting. This is definitely new dialogue, as we shouldn't be told this by Nono beforehand. This must be new. This must be new to this route. So we're probably already in the route. Alright. What? Otherwise, we wouldn't have it. Sarika gives me something I want to do? That's why she exists? The hell's going on here? It doesn't make sense. It makes perfect sense. The two of them kept glaring at each other, ignoring me.
こんなのタクルのやりたいことだと思う親友である伊藤君に大事な妹ユイを殺されて
Do you think this is what Ito wants? Or Takuru wants? Do you think he wanted Ito, his best friend, to kill Yui, his little sister?
そんなことタクルが本当に望んでると思うの
Do you really think that's what Takuru wants?
それはこのゲームを盛り上げるための
I had to make the game more exciting.
なら私も殺しなさいそうすればタクルがもっと喜ぶんでしょ
Kill me too, it'll make him happier, right?
この
Bruce had lowered her weapon, completely exposing herself. Sarika raised her own.
やめろ、尾上。
Stop, Onoe!
宮代タクル
Takuru Miyashiro.
僕はそんなこと望んでない。
That's not what I want.
僕はそんなことしたくない。してほしくもない。
I don't want to do that, and I don't want you to do it either. I finally knew now. I finally knew what was important to me. What I really wanted was... Oh, Sarika swung her D-sword up high as if driven by some unseen force.
やめろ。
ダメタクル
Oh, Takuru. I tried to leap between them, but Kurusu's voice
来て
interrupted
はダ
me.
メ今はセリカと話をさせて
Stay back. Let me talk to Sarika right now. Yeah, this is definitely in the root
Demo.
content. But
お願
he
いよ
never gets a conversation or a word in before she's dead. Please, Takuru. Her voice was calm, but there was no room for disagreement. I hesitated a moment and then stopped. But I was ready to jump in at any moment if I needed to. Kurusu turned towards Sarika once more and continued. Sarika was still holding her D-sword above her head, but she was pale and unmoving.
セリカ
Sarika.
あなた人の心は読めるのに自分の心は全然分かってないのね
You can read other people's hearts, but you don't understand your own at all, do you?
に
What?
確かに最初はタクルのために始めたゲームだったでも途中からあなたの目的は変わってしまったのよ
At first, you started the game for Takuru's sake, but at some point your goal changed.
タクルのためのゲームではなくあなた自身のためのゲームに
It stopped being a game for Takuru and started being a game for you.
私のための
Game
Game.
for me?
わからない
Can't you tell?
あなたはねタクルと過ごすうちにタクルを支えられるのは自分だけだとそう考えるようになったの
The more time you spent with Takuru, the more you started to think you were the only one who could support him.
タクルが心を許す存在は自分だけそうじゃないと我慢できなくなったのね
You needed to be the only person he could trust, didn't you?
違う
No, I...
私は
あなたは羨ましくなったそして許せなくなった
You were jealous and angry at
タクル
everything
が
he
心を許
trusted.
している家族のこ
His
とを
family, his best
親友
friend.
自分の存在を脅かす
You
存
saw
在
them
を
as threats. That is an interesting way to hold that sword. It's like a really wonky reverse grip, but then again, she's also got like a scissor blade. It's like half scissor blade, right? Like half scissor blade, right? It's got that weird loop grip. Got like that weird loop grip. I probably would have held it slightly differently myself, but okay. Maybe it's not comfortable any other way. I don't know.
そしてタクルに家族や友達のことを思う心を育ててしまったこの私を許せなくなった
And then you started hating me for turning him into someone who cared about his friends and family.
黙れ
Shut up.
私にはわかるわ。あなたの嘘が、あなたの気持ちが。
I know all about your lies and feelings
あなたの
because
拓郎
you're...
黙れよ
Did she say something about Takuru in that line in Japanese? Or say Takuru in that line? Shut up.
セリカ、確かにあなたは人形だったのかもしれない。でも今はもう。
Sarika, you might have been a puppet once, but now your strings have been cut, you're free?
黙れ
Shut up! Wow, she's really mad. She just really wants her to shut the fuck up.
セリカ、
Sarika.
お前あんたなんかに何がわかるって言うのよ嘘何が嘘だって言うんだ
The hell do you know? Lies? What lies? When have I ever said this a lie? You know what I'd like to see? If I'm gonna see a new D-sword, I think we have so many weird D-swords. I'd like to see a D-sword. Maybe it looks like a regular-ass sword, but you think it's a sword, and then actually, like, it shoots the blade. Like it's secretly like a crossbow or some shit. It's like secretly a bow or a gun or some shit. Like you think you're like finally a regular-ass fucking sword, and it's like surprise, bitch, it's a gun. It's like surprise when you squeeze the hilt too hard, it like fires the blade out or something. No trigger, nothing obvious. Just like it's actually secretly a ranged weapon or something. That said, I do kind of like Sarika's blade. It's not too unbelievable or awkward, and it looks like a weird greatsword you'd find in an MMO. What lies? What you said it's lies? Something was wrong with the way she was talking. It was a mix between the Sarika I knew and one I didn't.
大体お前が人のことを言えるのか嘘つきはどっちよこの嘘つき嘘つき
What gives you the right to talk about anyone else anyway? Which of us is the liar? You're the liar! Bruce froze for a moment when Sarika called her a liar. Sarika must have thought she finally had the upper hand again because she smiled.
さっきもそうだったけど顔色が変わったね
You went pale just like you did before.
タクによっぽど知られたくないんだ
You really don't want Taku to know, do you? Liar. Liar? Come to think of it, Sarika had said before there was something Kurusu wasn't telling me. Now, Kurusu had told me herself, too.
いつかタクルにだけは私が言えないでいること。
Yeah, no, this isn't her suicide note. This is,
そのせいでまた嫌われちゃうかもしれないけど、
it might be.
それでも構わない。
I don't remember if we've read her suicide note at this point. Someday I want to tell you all the things I can't say. It may make you hate me again, but I don't care. I don't think we read it, right? I think we read it when Shinjo, in the main route, we read it when Shinjo gives it to us after she's dead.
その時はちゃんと最後まで聞いてくれる。
So she wants to someday tell us all the things she can't say. It might make us hate her again, but she doesn't care. When that happens, will you let me say everything I need to? Has that day come? What was going on? What were Sarika and Kurusu saying?
私ね全部知ってるあんたが出来の悪い大嘘つきの
I know all about it. You're a failure, a liar, and...
やめ
Don't?
フェイクだってことをね
And a faker. Okay, a fake? Well, you know what? It's okay. People still like Archer, and he's a fucking faker. That's literally his nickname, the nickname Gilgamesh gives him. Remember? Unlimited Blade Works, everybody? People still like Emiya, so I don't think it's a huge deal. The fake Empress. No! Kurusu's hand flew forward. Her blade sliced out towards Sarika in a circle, ripping through the air as it moved. must have been an unconscious movement so fast there wasn't even time to read her mind, and Sarika hadn't expected her to stop talking and attack, so her response was a little slow, but she still managed to block it at the last minute. Smug Sarika, damn. Oh, okay, you're all ready to kill me, huh? I like that, no? Look at that smug Sarika, damn. The D-swords collided again. Their silver silhouettes scorched the atmosphere around them. The blades bit into one another in a rush of feints and parries. The scent like ozone stung my nostrils. Watch this be like the fastest ending, where like the minute one of them dies, the route ends. I'd lost my chance to stop the two of them, and all I could do was watch them fight. What was going on here? Oh, come on, what's wrong? Done already? Let's play some more! Bruce had been the one to start this fight, but she seemed unable to hide her shock at having done so. Sarika, meanwhile, was showing no signs of fear or resistance at all. Her strikes were calm and precise. Okay, is it just me? In this battle, that was made the fatal difference. Is it just me, or would, like, a lucky Nono be able to use her sword like a sword breaker and catch, if she does any thrust, she could probably catch the sword and either break it or just go in for a punch, right? Oh, it's maybe on the... It's on the wrong side. She's not holding the blade with her left arm. That'd be pretty hard to do. You'd have to catch it with, like, a reverse grip. You'd have to, like, swap or swing around and catch on your outside if you wanted to swing for a punch. But I feel like that might be, like, a viable option with all these gaping holes in her swords. Catching the blade and then, like, swinging with a knife or something would actually be, like, an okay strat. Because her weapon is, like, a stupid reverse grip. It's like a reverse grip dagger, which is not what you want to be doing. Like, reverse grip, probably not the right way to hold a dagger in a fight like this. You really need the reach. You really need the reach, and reverse grip is terrible for reach. Alright, you're always terrible at sports, weren't you? Rika laughed and pulled her blade away. It was an obvious trap. No, Kurusu! Kurusu attacked, falling for the obvious trap. You know the trap is obvious. You know the trap is so fucking obvious when even Takuru notices it's a trap. That's like a 5 IQ play. Like, you're so enraged that you literally fall for like the obvious bait that even like this complete idiot who can't tell like that someone was trying to listen to the audio of a track when they notice that the audio is at 150% volume. They're like, oh man, why is it so loud? They must have accidentally scrolled up when they left the computer. Like, he misses the most obvious stuff, but he actually noticed that. Sarika smiled and moved just a little, then waited for the sword to go by. These swords are weightless, this shouldn't be a problem with momentum. Royce had stepped too far forward and failed to strike her target. She lost her balance. Her body was wide open to the threat in front of her. It's weightless, there should be no momentum other than your hands. This should be, like, incredibly easy to recover from. We've known each other for a long time, but it's over now. Bye-bye now. A cold, cruel voice and a single strike from above. A waterfall of light appeared in midair, coming right down on top of Kurusu's skull. It was a simple attack, but clearly a fatal one. No. My body slipped away from my mind and moved. Note that he never actually interrupts the attacks. If this was Ito, he would have already been in there blocking the attacks with his body, or instantly killing Sarika/Nono for attacking the other person, without any hesitation nor mercy. But here he actually watched like 10 swings get delivered by Sarika and Nono without actually responding. My hand was too far away. Telekinesis, bitch. We're way later in the chapter. You should be able to use it. I wasn't going to make it in time. Hey, there we go. But then my hand grabbed onto something. It was a D-sword gleaming dull gray in the moonlight. I grabbed the sword from the rift between dimensions and swung it up as hard as I could to block the strike above Kurusu's head. Wait, what? Let's look at this scene again. Nono completely unsummoned her Let's watch this again. Nono has completely desummoned her sword and is just blocking above her head with her bare hands. What? Nono, what are you doing? What is Nono doing here? Even if you lose your balance, dropping your weapon is definitely not the right call. If her hands... Let's think about this again. If her hands are able to reach this high, this means she is able to block or at least, maybe not like successfully parry, but at least block the greatsword coming at her head, right? Just think about this. Like, the blade is held in her hands and it weighs literally nothing. So it's completely weightless. That's why they can swing these giant-ass swords with no concern. How on earth is she unable to block the sword in time, the swing in time? Like, maybe it, like, knocks her off balance and she gets killed in a fatal blow afterwards when she's, like, on the ground or some shit, but, like, and, like, recovering from a day's, like, knockdown or something where she, like, hits her head and is like, oh, shit, where's the, oh, shit, it's that. Like, I can see it happening, but it's kind of weird that she desummons her sword, and in this pose, she clearly could have had her weapon up in time. Because her weapon is on her hand, right? So in theory, it would be up there and blocking. Anyway. Weird, but it looks really good. If we ignore the context of Nono desummoning her weapon, and have Takuru, who ran like 10 steps beside us and blocked an attack, it looks really good. This is like a really nice piece. I like the way it looks. I kind of wish they'd written the parts where Nono... I wish they like left Nono's hands somewhere else, but it looks really good. Alright. We got a block. Takuru! We should be seeing flashes of stuff from, oh, no way. Let's see. I put more strength into it and knocked Sarika's sword away. It was a D-sword. I could feel it in my hands. A cursed blade, something I had created that existed only for me. Why, Taku? Sarika stopped attacking and looked like she was about to cry. Her voice was weak. But it was the voice of the girl I'd known since I was little. Why are you picking Non, not me, when I've been with you for so long? Didn't she say she was in love with me?
Oh no.
Oh no, eh? Why? Tell me, Taku. Is this the world you wanted? Sarika was mumbling to herself like a patient with severe heat stroke.
Onoe, 聞いてくれ.
Onoe, listen to me. No, I don't want to.
Onoe!
Onoe. No, I don't want to hear it. Sarika. And she's gone. Sarika turned around and vanished into the darkness before either of us could say another word. I didn't know what was going on anymore. Yui was dead, Ito had killed her, and Sarika and Kurusu had just been trying to kill each other with swords. Why Sarika? Why did Kurusu have a D-sword? Was she a psychic too? No, she just happens to have the ability to summon swords. It's completely unrelated to being a psychic. All those other magical non-psychics that exist in this story. Like, nobody. And, no one. Kurusu suddenly looked at me in terror, and her sword's suddenly back in her hand.
一体何があったのか.
What happened?
これがどういうことなのか.
I wonder if they did the like really nice high quality assets before they set up the sprites or the story. Maybe it was like part of their storyboarding. They maybe they did their storyboards They did their storyboards, commissioned art for them, and then maybe changed the plot a little bit, because she has her sword back in her hands again. So maybe their original plan was that she figured things out on her own and wasn't a psychic. And that's why it was her blocking with, like, no weapon in her hands, and then suddenly her weapon's back here, right? Like, clearly, this thing is, like, stuck in her hand, and she's holding it. How do you lose it? It's not like she threw the weapon, right? Because she's been blocking, using it like a sword, like everyone else. What's going on here? Will you tell me, please? Marie slowly closed her eyes, then nodded. That's pretty straightforward. Tell her what you found in the video. Heads or tails? When I finished hearing the truth from her, I looked out at the sky in silent shock. I felt helpless, like the ground beneath me had crumbled and I was falling into hell. The strength left my body and I felt my knees on the hard concrete. Kurusu had told me everything. She gave me just the objective facts without adding any of her own opinions in. Those are usually really boring stories. I try to spice them up a little bit. She told me the truth behind the return of the New Generation Madness. It was unbelievable. Sarika Onoe was behind it all, and all of it was being done for my sake. Just like the ridiculous theory I'd come up with, it was a game, and I was the player. Can't believe it. I mean, it can't be true, right? Why would Onoe do that? How would she be capable of it? She's always with me. She's always there whenever I want her to be. But I told you. That's exactly why. We can skip the explanation because we know it, right? Or are they gonna lay it out for us here? Kurusu spoke. Her face was filled with sorrow. She was always with you. That's why she did it for you. For me? Sarika committed all those murders for me. She killed all those people for me. She killed Yui for me. For me, really.
信じられない気持ちわかるわ。信じたくないのもわかる。私もそうだったから。
It's a cool story, but it's still murder, Sarika. And it's not really strongly justified. I understand that it's hard to believe, and I know you don't want to believe it, neither did I.
でも、
But
真実だったの。
it's true. Of course, I knew that Kurusu wouldn't tell me this as a joke. I'd seen how Sarika had acted a moment ago. Sarika had intended to kill Kurusu, but if all that was true... That means it's my fault, doesn't it? No, not really. At best, assuming that you know she's like an accidental creation of yours that went rogue when you didn't even know you could create people, let alone have them go rogue, you'd be like the worst you could get is like manslaughter, right? You'd be like, okay, I accidentally killed some people. That would be the most you could possibly pin on someone. You're like, they accidentally killed someone. And it's like, okay, how responsible are, how reasonably would a reasonable person know that this could lead to someone's death? And I think the answer would be, there's no way you could possibly know that wishing someone into existence with the wish, I wanted something to do, would result in like 10 people dying. Because A, it's not reasonable to expect that to actually have an effect. B, you wouldn't assume that having something to do or a purpose would involve other people dying. Because that doesn't make sense. You'd be like, okay, is the purpose of people to kill people? Is the purpose of someone's existence to solve murders? You can't really prove that, so... And you wouldn't make that assumption, so... I feel like he's pretty safe in a court of law from being judged on this, and probably... I'd probably say he's pretty safe for the, like, pretty safe morally for these murders, right? Even if he makes like, his statement is, his wish and his statement aren't things that would typically be construed as, like, evil or resulting in bad things. And he hasn't taken actions to make them bad. Make them, like, evil. I'd say. I know he's, like, conflicted over this, because it's, like, sort of... It's like he made something that did something bad, but at this point, I think Sarika is her own person, so... It's not really his fault she killed anybody? I mean, like, he didn't even tend to make this person, so I don't think he could blame himself too much. It's like, if you're like aware that you can do this, if you're aware that you could accidentally make someone who kills people, there would be like some reasonable steps you should be taking. I don't know what they would be, but there are some steps you should probably take to make sure that doesn't happen again. But since he's unaware, he's pretty safe. Like, okay, you're passively killing people. Like, something you accidentally did caused some people to die, but it wasn't something a reasonable person would consider. I think I'd be like kind of justified in being like, oh well, I didn't know that. Shit. All right. I mean, you can feel kind of bad that you did it, but I wouldn't be like super crushed by it. I don't think. Yui's death, all the deaths, even the fact that Sarika had killed them. It's all my fault then, right?
僕のせいってことじゃないか。
タクル。
Taku. I felt something soft surround me as I knelt on the ground.
ダメ、タクル。
Taku.
クルス。
Funny story, to get to this route, you actually have to do the, you have to do the positive delusion when you go visit Kurusu and she's not wearing anything. I think that's the one where she wants like a sponge bath or something. You actually have to do that positive delusion to get to this route. It's the last one you have to do to reach it. So, you might have to have fantasies about Kurusu in order to get here. Curious how that goes.
そんな風に考えちゃダメ。
Don't think of it like that.
自分を責めてはダメ。
There was a gentle smell, like old memories, Kurusu's
だ
smell.
ってわかるはずないもの。自分のせいでこんなことが起きるなんて。
How could you have known this would happen because of you?
けど。
あなたはあの地震の時にちょっと考えてしまっただけ。その気持ちを勝手に読み取られて、勝手に暴走されてしまった。それだけなの。
You just thought something during the earthquake. She read your mind and did all that without ever asking you. That's all there is to it. Yeah, see, that's pretty risky. If you have any stray thoughts or dislike anything, you know, you're like, man, I hate this fucking homework. Like, she could just... Like, imagine, like, living in a world where if you think, man, I fucking hate this homework, and, like, suddenly the teacher's been stabbed to death the next day. Like, how would you reasonably operate like that? You're like, okay, I have, like... You don't reasonably expect that to happen, I don't think. Once you know it could happen, maybe you're like super disciplined and are like, hey, I need to explain this to people, but like, I think he's pretty clean on something like that.
だから、あなたは悪くない。
Yeah, it's not your fault.
ユイだって。
I know that Yui doesn't blame you either.
あなたのこと恨んでなんかいないわ。
Her words were as soft as a whisper, but they were strong.
僕は
I have to apologize
ク
to
ルス
you
に
too.
も謝らなきゃいけない。
That said, your dad being the murderous psychopath isn't something you can fix. He actually just needs to go. Like, why would you even be like, yeah, I'm down with all these murders?
謝る？
Apologize?
全部クルスの言う通りだった。最初に事件を追うなって言われた時も、その通りにしておけばよかった。
When you told me not to get involved in this case, I should have listened.
犯人だって南沢千里さんじゃなかった。
Killer wasn't Senri Minamisawa.
クルスの大切な
But I said all those things about your
眠っ
friend.
てる友達
I
まで
hurt you.
あんな風に言って。
いいの。
It's okay. Don't worry
気に
about
しないで。
ありがとう。
Bruce held me close until I was able to think clearly again. Alright?
もう 大丈夫？
Are you okay now?
は
Yeah. Be honest, I wasn't anything close to okay, but I couldn't sit up here on the roof forever. I stood up and looked around. The whole place was quiet, as if the battle had never happened. My D-sword had disappeared too.
クルス、もう一つだけ聞いてもいいかな。
Cruz, can I ask you one more thing? Good question. What question is he gonna ask here? I'd probably ask what her Gigalomaniac power is, or if she's a Gigalomaniac. That's my guess right here.
どうして
Oh, how come you never told me? Ah, how come you never told me you're a Gigalomaniac? That works too. She must have known what I was gonna say before I asked. Her face twisted in sorrow, but I had to ask
自分が
that you're a
ギ
Gigalomaniac.
ガロマニアッ
See?
クスだってこと。
It has to be something like that. No, there's no other big question lying in front of us, right? At least nothing I think a reasonable person would ask. Maybe if Takuru's like really into the case and they were discussing it, or parts of it instead of being like emotional and talking about each other, maybe you could have asked like, how do you know that, like what actually happened with Senri if you know she's not dead? If you're not certain she's dead, what could have happened to her? And that maybe is a question you could ask, but they're not really talking about Senri or the case in general. They're talking like with each other. Talking with each other, towards each other. So this seems much more appropriate. Alright.
それはその
Well, She looked down a little, then she looked up again. There was something like resolve in her eyes. Could have been like steel. That might have been better.
だって人に言いふらすようなことじゃないわ。みんな嫌がるだろうし。
It's not the kind of thing you want to tell people. It upset everyone, and you too. Dude, like we're trying to save people's lives here, and you're like, oh yeah, I could be a target for these murders too, but I'm not gonna fucking tell anyone, thanks. Like, do you think you can protect yourself from the killer? What are you doing? This is the, this was clearly a situation to be like, oh yeah, I'm someone who could be killed here too. When they're like, oh shit, we have to protect you, and she's like, oh, that's scary, Yui's in danger. It's like, you're in danger too, dumbass. It would upset everyone? What was her power?
嫌がったりしないよ。
It won't upset me. I'm a Gigalomaniac too. Will you tell me what your power is? There we
教えて
go.
くれないか。
We knew this was leading here once he started asking about her as a Gigalomaniac.
言わなきゃダメ
Do I
か
really
な。
have to? Yeah?
まだ何が起こるかわからないんだ。
We still don't know what's gonna happen. I need to know as much as I can. Chris hesitated for a moment, but finally spoke.
私のはその有村さんと同じなの。
My power is the same as Arimura's. Press X to doubt.
有村と同じ
The same as Arimura's?
ええ。人の言うことが嘘か本当かわかるのよ。最初にセリカが変だって思ったのもこの能力のおかげだし。
I don't think so. I think she's lying. I can tell when someone's telling the truth or what lying. That's what I thought. First thought something was wrong with Sarika. I think she's lying because her sword takes a completely different shape. I think we haven't seen anyone with duplicate powers yet, and I think their blades would be similarly shaped if that was the case. That's... Yeah. You thought something was wrong with Sarika because you can tell when people are lying? Wouldn't Arimura also have found that based on your truth detection pings?
そうだったのか。
I see.
でも有村さんも言ってなかった？
Remember what
そん
Arimura
な
said?
にいいもの
It's
じゃない
not
っ
that great.
て。
I think she's lying.
どうだったかな。
I don't remember.
人の言葉の裏表なんて知りたくないことばかり。それにこんな能力を持ってるって知られたら。
This is inconsistent. We also don't
私
ignore
を避けようとする
Arimura.
わ。
No, we don't ignore Arimura. Why are you making this obvious lie up? Also, if Arimura was here, she'd slap you for making such an obvious lie up. She's like, I don't need my lie detecting superpowers to know this. It'd probably like slap you for lying. People knew I had this power they avoid. We don't avoid Arimura, so why the fuck would we avoid you like this? I remember that Arimura had been reluctant to show off her power too, and then we do nothing but use her as a lie detector all the time. It was probably better not to know what people were really thinking when they spoke, and she probably wouldn't want people avoiding her.
私の場合、有村さんほど正確じゃないんだけどね。
Power's not as precise as Arimura's, though.
正解率 60% といったところかな。
It's about 60%, I guess. That explained something. Why Sarika called Kurusu fake? She must have been saying she had a bootleg copy of Arimura's power. And why does she have a shittier version of the same power? Doesn't make a lot of sense. Illegally made, often inferior copy of an existing product, and ozone, chemical formulation, O3. I don't know what that meant. I'm not sure I believe this. I'm actually not sure I believe Nono's telling us that this is her power. I think she's deceiving us and herself about what her power is. Hey, Takuri.
私たち、これからどうすればいいのかしら。
What could we do now that we knew the truth? Now that we'd lost Yui and even Sarika? To be honest, my head was a mess and I couldn't think straight. You tell Shinjo and you're like, I know who the killer is. It's Sarika before anyone else dies. There was one thing I could say, that was... We need to do something about Inoue. I couldn't let her kill anyone else. If everything that had happened so far was the result of my wish, then we had to end it here. Also, there's like blood splatters everywhere. Is Nono okay? Because usually when you see this much blood, somebody's fucking dying, right? Like, look at the amount of blood on the grass and tell me that's not like a serious amount of blood. If everything that happened here was the result of my wish, then we had to end it here. If Sarika's plan was going to continue, the next murder would happen on November 4th, today. And our target was probably Nono Kurusu, the girl who knew too much. I had to protect her, no matter what. I wouldn't let Sarika commit any more crimes either. Dude, like, call Shinjo, tell him you know who the killer is. A faint vibration pulled me from the sea of sleep. Who the hell could be calling at this hour? Wait, what time is it? Where am I? Nono's room? I remembered everything and was instantly fully awake. If Sarika was going to attack Kurusu, it would be on the 4th. I'd stayed over in Kurusu's room last night to keep her safe. Dad was away tonight of all nights on some conference meeting or some bullshit. It was up to me to keep Kurusu safe, but at some point I'd fallen asleep. Wait, where's Kurusu? I leapt up and looked at the bed, but she wasn't there. Where did she go? You're being called! Pick up the phone! No way. Just before I raced out of the room to look, I caught a glimpse of my phone screen. The phone was still vibrating. Kunosada? It was rare for her to call me. What happened? I grabbed the phone with a shaking hand, afraid of what I was to hear. Hello? My voice was hoarse since I'd just woken up. Asleep, huh? I guess you're taking it easy. She was as rude as ever. How did we manage to get through the entire evening without calling Shinjo and telling him who the killer was? Shouldn't that be the first thing you do to make sure she's not killing other people like Arimura? Or like murdering someone else? Like, at least have the police on the lookout for her. Come on, man. Forget it. What's going on? Why are you calling me? We know who the killer is. Make the fucking phone call, man. Sorry. I don't have time to go over the details. I'll tell you what it was and what I need. You know what yesterday, November 4th was? It doesn't matter, man. Why did we not make a fucking phone call? Holy shit. We wasted our whole day away doing jack fucking shit. Didn't call Shinjo. Fuck, man. My heart started to beat faster. The DQN puzzle? That's right, just like we expected, there's been a new death. Fucking idiot. He literally just killed someone. Alright. It wasn't Kurusu, was it? Fuck me, this kid's so stupid. My heart felt like it was gonna stop. But when she told me the victim's name, it was someone I never expected. A body was found. Okay. Brutally murdered last night. On November 4th, an examination of belongings and other things revealed the victim's name was
佐久間渡児童養護施設青葉寮の経営者だ。
Wataru Sakuma, owner of the children's welfare facility Alba Dorm. Huh. Okay, who could have killed this? Do you think Wakui killed him? Wakui is an assassin for the committee. He might have killed Wataru. For making a fucking mess, because Wataru's doing all the mind control tricks. Or it might have been Sarika, right? Sarika might have killed him? Alright. I felt a shock like someone pounded a nail into the center of my brain. My ears began to ring and everything started to feel unreal. Dad had been killed? Yeah, but he's literally killed like 10 people, who cares? Unfortunately, Onoe didn't tell us that, so we aren't aware of that. Onoe and possibly Kurusu failed to tell us that. I prayed this was some kind of nightmare, but I didn't even have the right to escape into my delusions.
父さんは
Dad?
い
When?
ほ
つ
う。本当かとは聞かないのか。
Oh, you're not gonna ask if I'm telling the truth? What?
こういう場合、普通なら疑ってかかってもおかしくはないと思うが。
Normally you'd be more suspicious, or had you already suspected the
最初か
possibility?
らその可能性があったか。
I think he was already suspecting the possibility. Or he's just waiting to know who died. Because he knows who the killer... He's suspecting the possibility because he knows who the killer is and he fucking let them off the hook and didn't bother calling the fucking cops. Like a dumbass, so he just let someone die.
いや、
No, doesn't matter.
今
I'll
は
tell
ど
you
う
the
でもいい
details.
ことだな。一応詳細を教えておいてやる。
お願い
Please do.
します。
死亡推定時刻は11月4日22時半から23時半。
Okay, the time of death was between 10:30 and 11:30 p.m. on November 4th.
死因は鋭い刃物による頸動脈の切断。それもただの一撃で致命傷を与えられていた。
Cause of death was the severing of the carotid artery with a sharp blade. There was only one strike, but it was fatal.
防御創や争った形跡もない。にもかかわらず真正面から切りつけられている。
There were no signs of resistance or struggle, but the blade came from the front.
可能性として考えられるのは3つ。1つ目は加害者と被害者が顔見知りだった。2つ目は加害者が被害者を待ち伏せするなどしてとにかく不意打ちにした。
There are three possibilities here. The first, the killer and the victim knew each other. The second, that the killer set an ambush and caught him off guard. And the
そして
third,
3つ目はその合わせ技だな。
a combination of the two. Yep. And we already know the answer to this. I don't know why she even has to, I was gonna say, investigate this. Our character is literally so fucking arrogant. He's like, fuck the police. Suri can kill anyone she wants to. I'm just gonna protect Nono. Like, yeah, someone else got murdered and Kunisada's just like completely in the dark. Like, man, this is really weird. Like, someone else close to you got murdered. You have no clue who the killer is? And, like, what were you doing yesterday? Like, I swear to God. Oh, man. You look so sus when you don't, like, just tell them. Like, how is this a difficult thing to do? Be like, oh, yeah, I know who the killer is, by the way. Like, this instantly clears up everything. She doesn't even have to call. She's like, oh, okay, Sarika killed this person. Kunisada's tone was calm and level. But the fact that we didn't question it means she knows we know who the killer is. Or at least we have an idea of who the killer is, and we just haven't told her anything. Kunisada's tone was calm and level, because she's supposed to be super intelligent, right? So clearly she'd pick up that something's off here. Like she said. She's like, oh, that's weird, you're not contesting that? It was like a doctor telling a patient the result of an exam. But to be honest, I preferred it that way.
私が知っている情報は以上だ。いずれ警察からも連絡があるだろう。そちらで何か心当たりがあれば教えろ。
That's all I know. The police will be contacting you eventually. If you figure out anything, call me. Once she was done talking, she hung up. But I kept the phone pressed against my ear, barely aware of what I was doing. So you were completely aware that doing nothing all day and not calling the police, letting them know who the killer was, or at least to like screen who, maybe to like screen people near you because you know who the killer is. You knew this was a known possibility, and you didn't even bother responding to it. Like, Sarika's going on a killing spree, killing people near you because she doesn't want you to have any support. And instead of calling the police and saying, I know who the killer is, I know why they're killing it, and it's just like, this, explain to the police. Shinjo goes, okay, we'll put a policeman on every single person who's like closely associated with you, and maybe they won't die, or at least they'll have some measure of protection. Instead, he's just like, fuck it, they can die. I know that what's his face has mind control powers, who would probably like escape and get murdered anyway, but like at least then they'd have an idea of the process of events. They would be trying to save people and maybe catch Sarika if they're lucky. This guy, Takuru, doing a Takuru tier plays, as usual. Dad had been killed. It didn't feel real hearing the words. But just like Kunosato said, there was no point in her lying. And if she was telling the truth, the murderer was definitely Sarika. But why would Sarika kill Dad? Because she needed to finish the string of killings? Of course, that was probably part of it, but why Dad? Had she gone after Dad since I was keeping her from getting to Kurusu? Oh, no. No. Now's not the time to be thinking about that. Dad was murdered. Let's not think about why Dad died. Let's just acknowledge he's dead and have a panicky reaction to something that should be the most obvious thing in the world. And I was the reason. I killed Yui and I killed Dad. Yeah. This time it's actually your fault. This is the first killing that's actually been his fault, because he knew that there was a killer on the loose, knew who they were, and did nothing to stop them. That's right. What about Kurusu? Kurusu could be dead. I ran to the living room and found her.
Kurusu.
She was standing there in shock, holding the phone in her hands. She slowly turned towards me and spoke in a voice that was barely audible. Kuru, Dad is... is she actually shocked?
Kurusu.
I ran to her and grabbed her before she could hit the ground. Doctor, they said Dad's... Dad's... Yeah. You knew? How? Kunosato just called me, right?
Kunosato-sanから連絡が。
Kunosato just called me. I see. Rough, sorry. Looks like Nono may or may not have been... I'm still like iffy on it, but I think she might not have been aware that he's the other killer. Her hands gripped my arms so tightly it hurt. To be honest, I'd never seen her so weak before. She'd always been so strong. But now Yui and Dad were dead, at the hands of a person she thought was her friend. Presumably. It's still most likely, but we'll see. What do we do? What do we do now? Right.
ユウトに知らせなきゃ。それからウキちゃんにも、あと警察に行って身元の確認をしてほしいって。学校にも連絡を。それに
We have to call the police to confirm. Go to the police and confirm his identity. And then we have to call the school. All right. That's a perfectly reasonable response. Tri's trying to order everything she has to do. Okay.
落ち着いてくるぜ。
Calm down, Kurusu. The way she's responding makes me think she's not aware he's the killer. He's one of the killers. That's my first thought of Nono's response here. She's not calm. She's clearly upset and surprised. When she should have been kind of bracing for him to be like a villain. Maybe she could be surprised he's dead so suddenly. But like, if you knew he was the killer, you should be like preparing yourself mentally. And like mentally separating yourself from this awful person. And she doesn't seem to have done any of that. Strangely, it seemed that being in the presence of someone who was actually more panicky than yourself actually made you calmer. I softly patted her on the head. That's funny, because our character is like the most panicky person on the planet. Just like she'd done for me last night. Head pats. Head pats for Nono.
余計なことは考えなくていいから。
Not now. For now, you don't need to think about anything. Of course, that didn't actually make it better. Without Dad, we had all kinds of problems to deal with. But first, we'd have to calm down.
ごめんね、タクル。もう少し。
I'm sorry, Takuru.
もう少し経てば元の私に戻るから。だから。
I'm sorry, Takuru. Just give me a little time and I'll be back to my usual self, so... Only then did I finally realize Kurusu was probably always, or had probably always forced herself to be strong like this, no matter what had happened. She told herself she needed to be tough, no matter what. That she'd had to be strong to protect Yui and Yuto without me at Albador. But I'd been selfish and... I mean, she's the controlling and domineering one. It's okay now. I'm here for you. That's probably what I should have said, but all I did was gently rub her back. The next few days were a blur. We had to go to the police and ID the body, then get the death certificate. I was surprised at how much work there was to do for the family of a murder victim. I was worried that there might not be time to properly mourn, but it was better to be so busy there wasn't time to remember you were sad. Both Kurusu and I were able to forget about things during all that. The problem was Yuto. He'd lost his sister, now his adoptive father was dead. He was never a strong boy to begin with, so he was in pretty bad shape, but Yamazoe was what saved him. We stayed with him the whole time while we were running around. After the autopsy of Dad's body was finished, it was decided he'd be cremated. We didn't have the money for a funeral, but a local neighborhood group put together enough money for the cheapest service available. We somehow managed to make it through. A lot of Dad's old patients came to pay their respects. When it was all over, we suddenly found ourselves facing a new problem.
そんな、私たちにここを出て行けって言うんですか?
You're telling us we have to leave?
立て続けの不幸の上に追い打ちをかけるような状況になってるんだ。君たちには酷なことだと思うが。
I really hate to make things worse for you guys after everything you've been through, but Shinjo had come to visit us that day in Albador. He had a bitter look on his face as he spoke.
今回の事件を契機にうちの二課が調べたんだが、どうやら佐久間氏は保険に入っていなかったようでな。
Section 2 did some looking around after the murder, and it looks like Sakuma didn't have insurance.
それは、はい、そうです。父さんには何度か言ったんですが、本人が面倒くさがって。
Yeah, it's true.
ま
I
さか
talked to
こん
him
な
at
こと
several
になる
times,
とは思っ
but
て
he
い
always
なか
said
っ
it
た
was
ので。
too much of a bother. We never thought it would happen. I'd never talked to Dad about money. She was the only one in the dorm who knew that.
ここの財布を管理していたのは君か?
So you're in charge of the budget here?
はい。
Yes.
だったらわかると思うが、経営状態も芳しいとは言えない。むしろ、もともと赤字経営なところに、あちこちに出している不当たりが積もりに積もって、窒息寸前って状態だった。
I'm sure you're aware the situation was pretty bad. He was running at a loss to begin with, and unpaid bills were piling up. Things were at their breaking point already. I knew we weren't rich, but I had no idea it was that bad. And yet Dad had taken us in anyway. Only now, when it was too late, did I realize how much he'd protected us.
その上、この建物自体も抵当に入っていたようだ。君か宮代君が相続しても構わないが、仮にそうしたところで建物ごと取り上げられた挙句、借金だけが残ることになる。
And then there's a mortgage on the building itself, too. Either you or Miyashiro is free to take it, but even if you did, it would be immediately repossessed and you'd be left with nothing but bills. Well, that's rough.
とても賢明な判断とは言えないだろう。
It's not what I'd call a smart decision. That's rough. You just lost your father, you just lost your sister, and then the police show up and are like, hey, sorry bro, you're actually your whole family's actually out of money and you're getting evicted. And you're like, shit. I'm an orphan, my adopted parents are dead, and now I don't even have my own house. Damn, that's brutal, holy shit.
ねえ、
In other words, we have no choice to
のの
leave.
姉ちゃん、
No. Yuto was standing a little away from us, looking scared.
どういうこと？僕たちどうなっちゃうの？
What's going on? What's gonna happen to us?
言うと、
Oh, Yuto. But he's still talking.
僕たち
That's better than when
ここ
Nom
を出
died.
ていかなきゃいけないの？
We have to leave.
そんなの嫌だよ。
I don't want to leave
だっ
this
て
spot.
ここは僕の家だもん。僕とお姉ちゃんとお父さんと、それからのの姉ちゃんと タグル兄ちゃんとウキ姉ちゃんとみんなで暮らした家だもん。
This is where me and my sister, Dad, Nono, Takeru, and Uki all lived. Rough stuff.
そんなの僕ゆうとくん。
Poor Yuto. Yamazoe held him gently as he started to cry. Her face was clouded with worry too. I could understand it. She'd finally made it out of the basement and had only just started getting used to her new life, and now this happened.
でも急にここを出て行けなんて言われても僕たちには他に行くところがありません。
Even if we do have to leave, we've got nowhere else to go. What are you talking about? You have a homeless shelter. Or not a homeless shelter. You have a fucking trailer. RV, man. Everyone else is screwed, though. I could go back to the RV I'd been living in, but I wouldn't be able to fit everyone there. There was no room there for 4 people, even if some of them were kids.
それなんだが、別の施設に移るってのが妥当だと思う。
I think the best option would be for you to go to another orphanage.
別の施設。
Another orphanage?
ただ、これも一つ問題があってだな。例の地震以降、都内の施設はどこも満杯なんだ。全員まとめて同じ場所ってのはどうも難しいら
That's
し
the
い。
problem with that. Ever since the earthquake, all the orphanages in the city have been full. It looks like it's going to be hard for you all to go to the same place. Ooh, even worse news. Now you're getting all split up.
それってつまり
Man,
それぞ
when
れ
it
別
rains,
の施
it
設に
fucking
ってこ
pours.
とですか？
It means we have to go to different orphanages?
そういうことになるだろう
It
な。
does. Yeah.
そんな
No. Yuto is the first to speak.
そんなの嫌だよ。
Alright.
ここを出ていくだけじゃなく、みんなとバラバラだなんて。
I don't want to go. I don't want to leave or be separated from everybody.
そんなの僕
I gasped a little as I heard the tension in Yuto's voice. I'd never seen him express himself so clearly to an adult. That was how serious the prospect of leaving everyone was to him.
私も嫌です。
I don't want that either. Yamasoe rubbed Yuto's back, speaking in a clearer voice than I'd ever heard from her before.
せっかくみんなと家族になれたのに、そんなのひどいです。
We're finally a family. You can't just tear us apart. Jinjo scratched his head as if he wasn't sure what to say. He's a nice guy, really, and he's put in a super awkward position. Telling us this stuff wasn't even his job. But he was the one who told us, and he's the only person we could complain to.
大丈夫よユウト。それにユキちゃん、私が何とかするから。
Don't worry, Yuto. Yuki, I'll do something.
なんとかって
Do
どうする
something?
つもりだ？
Like what? Yeah, I'm with the crew. What's the plan?
それはアルバイトとか。
A part-time job or something? We'd all need those. Maybe we could cut back on Mountain View. I wonder how much this guy spends on Mountain View per day. So like a bottle or can is like what? Like $1? Assuming you're buying them in bulk in cases, they're like $1-ish. Or maybe a bit less. He's drinking like 2-3 a day. That's a lot of spare change kicking around. It's a few $100s, right? 3 a day times 10. 30 is 30 times 3 is $100. It's not very much. That's not very much, relatively speaking, I guess. That's only like $100 a month. In pop. Oh, you could have cut back on that one, man. That's a lot of money for drinks.
バイトって
Job?
これだけの人数が生活でき
Can't
るほ
make
ど
enough
稼
money
げ
to
るわけが
support
な
this
い。
many people. Well then, Takuru, looks like you're gonna step up. If you both get a part-time job, you could make, I don't know how much. It's a mortgage, so it's a fixed value. You might be able to cover it. You can definitely cover your electrical and gas and whatever else bills. You can probably rent out the... If you were fortunate, you could probably rent out the building, but I don't know if you have... Rent out the bottom floor, but I don't know if you have time for that. You have to find someone, get a lease. Find someone, get them to sign a lease. They do their whatever construction shit. Like, you might be able to rent out the bottom floor, but I don't know how much time they have because they're already behind on their bills. I also don't know. I don't think it'd be viable for them to obviously run a store because they don't have the time for that.
でも
But if I quit
学校
school...
を辞めれば
本気か
You serious?
だって
There's no
他
other
に
way.
みんなが一緒にいられ
I
る
don't
方
want
法
us to
なん
be
て
torn
ない
apart
じゃ
either.
ない。
You're my family.
私だってみんながバラバラになるなんて嫌なの。
Is
大
she
事な家族
18?
だもの。
I think she's 18, right? Hikaru and Nono are just barely 18, right? I don't know if you have to, if you're legally required to finish high school in Japan. If they count as adults, they probably don't work. They don't probably at least like if you were in like Canada or the States. Once you're an adult, you don't have to finish high school. You can drop out if you want to. Not a lot of people don't because they're like most of the way there, but you can technically drop out and start working full time if you really want to. It might be an option. I don't know if it is in Japan. Might be though. She's talking about it like it's an option, and she's right in front of a fucking police officer, so he would know if it's against the law to drop out of school.
僕も働く。
Oh, work too. No, that one's probably not legal. He's in middle school. He's like 12. Pretty sure you can't get a reasonably well-paying job at 12, or at least nothing legal.
のの姉ちゃんたちと一緒にいられるんだったら僕も働く。新聞配達とか僕にだってできるし。
Technically legal? Okay. Might be legal. Okay. I'll work if it means I can stay at the I can deliver papers and stuff. Right? You all have to find those jobs, like, soonish. We aren't given a timeline, but... I never expected Yuto to say something like that. His life here must have been very important to him. But it was important to me too. And there was something else we had to worry about. Was Sarika going to give up now? She hadn't come after us so far, but there was no guarantee she wouldn't come after Kurusu again. Or maybe Yuto or Uki would be her next target. Which meant there was only one thing I could do.
生活は僕の蓄えを使えばしばらくはなんとかできると思う。
I think we can get by for a while if we use my savings.
タクル。
How much do you have
問
in
題は
savings?
住む場所だ。
The problem is we need a place to live. But would any place rent a room to a bunch of students who just lost their father?
まあ、最初からこうなるだろうとは思ってたよ。
Well, I figure this is how it's gonna work out, alright. You don't have a guarantor. You could never sign a lease unless Shinjo himself or Kunosato is backing your lease. You'd literally never get an opportunity. You need someone to sign off on it, right? You also have to pay, what, first and last month's rent, as well as, like, I believe a key fee, right, in Japan? As well as a key fee, or whatever it's called. I forget. Effectively a thank you for letting me rent there? I forget. It's non-refundable. Alright. I figured how... You figured this was gonna work out like this, Shinjo? Alright, what's your plan? Shinjo sighed and scratched his head some more, then took his phone out of his pocket.
何かいい方法があるんですか?
Is there some way? Guess
こ
we're
ういうの
finding
が
out
得意
now.
な知り合いに当たってみる。
I'll talk to a
ああ、
friend of mine who's good
君
with
た
this
ちもよ
stuff.
く知ってる
Okay.
人物だよ。ただ
It's
断
someone
っ
you
とく
know
が、
well.
見つかるという保証はないぞ。
But just so we're clear, I'm not making guarantees.
ありがとうございます。
Thank you.
ありがとうございます。
Alright, lots of thanks. Kurusu, Yuto, and Yamazoe all bowed.
たく、こういうのは俺の仕事じゃないんだがな。
This really isn't my job, you know. He mumbled to himself as he dialed the number, then put the phone up to his ear.
ああ、もしもし、百瀬さん
Ah,
です
it's
か。
Momose.
折り入って話があるんですが、
Oh, hello,
今時間いいですか。
I need to talk to you for a moment. Do you have some time?
さあ、ここがあんたたちの部屋よ。
Alright, this is your new home. None of us were sure what to say when Momose took us to our new place.
ここですか?
This is it? It was an old, run-down apartment building that had been clearly built at least 30 years ago.
まあ、条件が条件だし、見つかっただけよしとしてちょうだい。
I didn't exactly have a lot of options for you. Be glad I found something, okay?
大丈夫よタクル。見た目はちょっとあれだけど設備はちゃんとしてるし、 それに住
Yeah,
め
so
ば
you
都
probably
って言う
need
じゃない
between a 2 and a 4-bedroom apartment in the middle of Japan. Yeah, it's probably really hard to find. And you need to, like, ideally find one that's cheap. It's gonna be pretty trashy if you need to find it, like, same day. I don't know how long it took. It didn't, 11/10. The murder was the 4th, right? And they said it was a few days later. Let's see, it's 10/11, I guess. Let's see, 8. So 2 days. 11/8, so November 8th. Weird way to display dates, but okay. November 8th. And then it's November 10th, she's already found a spot. 2 days? Finding something with 2 days notice and already moving in? That's, yeah, it's pretty hard to find anything. You told me to find a place to live in 2 days? Oh, yeah, it'd be hard to find anything, right? It'd be hard to find anything that's, like, perfect. But then again, like, oh well. I think it's doable. I think it'd be doable if you, like, did nothing but look for a place for, like, 2 whole days, but I don't know what they were doing during that. It looks a little beat up, but it's got everything it needs, and I'm sure we'll get used to it, yeah.
そうだよ、タクル兄
It's
ちゃん。
only for, like, a year,
み
man.
んな
It's not
で
the end
一
of the
緒
world.
にいられるなら少しくらい古くても。
That's right, Kiri. If we can all live together, it doesn't matter if it's a little old. Actually, weirdly enough, it's 30 years old, which means the building survived the quake, so it's outside the area of the quake. Alright, they can go. Still, it's still workable. I mean, Takuru isn't someone who's obsessed with interior decoration as, you know, a man who lives in a fucking RV. He lives in an RV in a homeless encampment. He can't care that much about how the interior looks. All he needs is his internet connection, which he might be using via tethering to his phone.
私も十分素敵なところだと思います。
That's a very positive statement to say, Uki, when I can see like the scratched paint. It might be bare walls. In fact, this might be just bare walls. These might be like concrete walls, or I'm guessing concrete. It looks like concrete, actually. Stained concrete, maybe? It looks like there's scratches and deep indentations. I was gonna say drywall, but a drywall doesn't look dark when it's scratched usually. This looks like concrete. Everyone was trying to stay positive. Or is it? Well, there's wood cross-section beams. Would it not be concrete? What would this room be made out of if it wasn't concrete? It can't be wood. Plaster? Maybe. Everyone was trying to stay positive. But I wasn't worried about the age of the building or the condition of the room.
違うんだよ。
Oh, that's not
そう
it.
いうことじゃないんだ。
そういうことじゃないって。
No? Then what's bothering
じ
you?
ゃあタクルは何を気にしてるの？
How long does it walk to school?
それは
Well,
やれやれ。昼間っから随分とうるさいと思ったら。
I wonder what all the
何
noise
の
was about.
冗談だ、これ
What's
は。
going on here? Are we roommates with Kunosato now? The closed door had opened and Kunosato had come out.
野里さん、どうしてこ
Is
こ
this
に？
the same apartment Kunosato lives in, or like the same complex? Kunosato, what are you doing here? Chris moved between Kunosato and Yuto as she spoke. This is bad. These two didn't get along. Of course, that was only because Kunosato hated us for no reason.
挨拶なり、菓子折りの一つでも持ってくるならまだしも。後から来ておいて、随分な態度だな。
Normally, people bring a box of chocolates when they move in. You've got quite an attitude considering you came here second.
後から？
Second?
ねえタクル、それどういうことなの？
Takumi, what does she mean?
それはつまりこの部屋の隣が彼女の部屋っていうか。
This is, the room next door is kind of hers.
お隣？
She's our neighbor? That's not so bad. They literally just got here. That's not so bad. She's our neighbor. That's not too bad. I nodded silently. Reyes grabbed Yuto's hand and headed for the door. We need to get out of here.
ユウト、行くわよ。ほら、ウキちゃんも。
Yuto, let's go. Come on, you too, Uki. Dude, really? Really? That's your response? Kunosato isn't that bad.
ノノ姉ちゃん。
No?
クールス、行くって
Chris,
ど
where are you
こへだ
going?
よ。
Yeah, where are you
決
going?
まってるでしょ。
Somewhere
あの
else.
人の
I'm
隣だ
not
なんて。
living next to her. Why does it matter?
あ
Yamazoe was standing in the center of the room fidgeting.
ここを出て行ってくれるのはこちらとしても非常にありがたい話だが
I'd be perfectly happy if you
行
left.
き先はあるのか
Do you actually have anywhere else to go? I don't think so.
あなたには関係のない
It
こと
doesn't
です。
concern you. The answer is no. Whatever they say, it doesn't concern you. The answer is probably no. Seeing Kunosato caused the blood to rush to Kurusu's head.
落ち着けよ、クールス。
Calm
冷静
down,
になれ。
Kurusu. Jesus. Relax, relax. Yeah, I'm with Takuru. Calm the
だっ
fuck
てタ
down.
クル、あなただって知ってるでしょ、この人がどういう
Takuru,
人
you
か。
know what kind of person she is, right? Yeah, and? It's not that bad, Nono. Like, let's be honest. Kunosato doesn't give a shit about you, but she's also a pretty quiet person. So, she's gonna say hi to you once and literally never talk to you. Like, in theory, this could be the perfect neighbor. Like, the best neighbors are the ones that don't bother you, and Kunosato could very well be one of those people. Where it's like, okay, she's perfectly quiet, I literally never hear from her. And, yeah, she investigates, like, sure, she investigates, serial killings on the occasion, but, like, whatever. Nothing super sketchy about her, honestly. On the fact that she doesn't give a fuck, like, as long as she's not super loud, who cares?
それは分かってるけど、
I do,
こ
but if
こ
we
を出た
leave,
ところで
where are
そ
we
の
going
後
to
どう
go?
するんだ
Yeah.
よ。
Like,
あなたが住んでたあの車にでも行く
go
わ
to
よ。
that trailer you live in.
ユウトやウキもいるのにか。
With Yuto. And Uki.
それは
Oh, oh.
その悪かったわね。
Sorry, I couldn't
で
find
も
anything
他
else.
になくてさ。
I think I need a drink. Delicious. You couldn't find anything else? That's fine, it's fine. I mean, this isn't too bad, honestly. Although the apartment complex is it's kind of run down. I believe it was described a little bit worse when we first went into Kunosato's place, that it was like a super sketchy building. We almost looked a little upset to see how poorly Kurusu and Kunosato got along. Who cares? They're neighbors, they just don't have to interact with each other. Like, you're not roommates, you're neighbors. You don't have to interact. Only when she saw that did Kurusu let go of Yuta's hand.
のの姉ちゃん、僕たち行くところなくなっちゃうの？
No, are we gonna lose our home? Don't be this stupid, Kurusu. It's fine.
ごめんね。
It's fine. I wasn't thinking.
大丈夫よ。
Good job,
私
Kurusu.
がどうかしてた。
I appreciate the fact that it took Kurusu maybe... This would probably be in real life like 5 seconds. Okay, maybe not 5 seconds. Maybe like 30 seconds to come to her senses and stop being stupid. That is like an infinitely... That is like a 50th of the time it takes to Kuru to come to his senses usually. Thanks, gut reaction, 2 lines of dialogue, changes her mind because she realizes it's a mistake. Good job. She gently patted Yuto on the head and turned to Kunosato.
でも言っておきますけど、あくまでも隣に住んでるだけですから。タクルやウキに実験とかおかしなことしようとしたら黙ってませんからね。
Just so we're clear, you're just our neighbor. If you try to do any experiments on Takuru and Uki, I'll make you regret it.
それはこちらのセリフだ。大勢で騒いだりしたら
That's it.
容赦なく壁を殴りつけるから
See?
な。
I said, you better not cause trouble either. If you make a lot of noise, I'll pound on the wall without mercy.
それからドアの外でばったり顔を合わせたりするのもごめんだ。私が廊下に出た時には出てくるんじゃないぞ。
I don't want to run into you out in the hall either. If I'm out there, you stay inside. Kunosato turned and walked back down the hall to her own room, her footsteps creaking on the wooden floor.
本当に何なのよあの人。
Just that girl's problem. Bruce stuck out her tongue at the closed door. Was she a little kid? Seriously, how is this not a good deal? As long as she's not loud, why do you even care that your neighbor doesn't like you? But it was rare to see Kurusu acting like a little kid. In a sense, Kunosato had a unique talent for bringing out that side of Kurusu.
すまないわね。
Sorry, guys.
あ、いい
No, I
え、こ
should
ちらこ
apologize.
そすみません。わざわざ面倒見てもらったのに。
You've been very good to us, yeah.
あの子もいろいろ事情があるのよ。勘弁してやってちょうだい。
She's got a lot of problems of her own. Try to cut her some slack. Show some sympathy for Kunosato. Yeah, okay. That's fair. Problems. Only then did I wonder for the first time why Kunosato was obsessively pursuing the case. Right, we haven't heard the rant about the committee yet. He was originally a brain scientist, supposedly. But I doubt she'd tell me if I asked. It's not the Kunosato
おい
route, I'm
お前
afraid.
ら人に手伝いさせて何のんびりしてんだ。少しは自分たちで運べ。
Hey, you guys, why are you standing there talking when you're making me work? Carry some stuff yourself. This poor man is like probably trying to get the fridge in the door by himself while they're just like talking about random
あ、
bullshit.
すみません。すぐやります。ほら、
We'll go
やってる。
ahead, come on, Takuru.
あ、うん。
Yeah. Help the man move the furniture at least. Once Shinjo and Mimose finished carrying everything in, they left and we were alone. Alright, we got a calendar, a lamp fixture. Oh, that's about it. Kurusu had split up the work for the move. This wasn't a big room, and we had a lot of people. We couldn't bring in most of the furniture, and even if we did, there'd be no place to put it. In the end, we'd only brought clothes, daily necessities, and a few mementos, so it wasn't too much work. My internet was set up, so at least I had that. See? All you need is the internet, man. I assume they have futons and tatami. Oh, it's a tatami room. This is a 4 tatami room? 1, 2, 3. Let's see. It should be 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. It should be 4 or 5, right? It's probably like a 4.5, I think. Is this a 4.5, you think? Dude. Let's think about this. This one's longer. These two could be the same length. Going down, this one at this length would be like that. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. 6. It's 6 mats. I bet the room is 6 mats. Cause it's like this, and then you mirror it. If they're all same size. I think it would be too small a room if it was if there was a half mat beside the stack of the rack with the boxes on it. Kurusu stood in the kitchen filling a pot with water. Friendly. Wait, is this the? They have a kitchen somewhere. Is it one room or is it several rooms? Because the kettle's there. She put the pot on the burner, then turned to the gas. Kettle's right there. Interesting.
ご飯おそばでいいわよね。
Soba's fine for dinner, right? Oh, there's a kitchen. This is probably like the main room?
引っ越しそばと言うんですよね。
Oh, I know about that. That's what you eat when you move, right?
ええ。本当はお隣にも持っていくものなんだけど。
Okay, I didn't know this. I didn't actually know this. So soba's fine for dinner? Yeah. You're supposed to eat it when you move. You're actually supposed to take it to the person next door, but Kunosato's our next door neighbor. Even if we did take it, I doubted she'd eat it.
おそば。
ゆうと
Ah,
は
soba.
カレーとかハンバーグとか食べたかったかしら。
Did you maybe want curry or hamburg steak?
おそばでいいよ。
Soba's also cheap, right?
そう、ごめんね。
I see. Sorry about that.
私手伝います。
It should just be noodles and sauce, right?
ありがとう。それじゃあ食器の用意をしてくれるかしら。それからテーブルを拭いて。
Okay, thanks. Can you get the dishes ready and wipe down the table? He said he didn't mind soba, but a kid Yuto's age must have wanted to eat something different. But he was probably trying not to cause a fuss because of how little money we had. Yamazoe was trying to find her own role in the family, but
ごちそうさまでした。
thanks for the food.
お粗末様でした。
Thank you for eating it. We found a place to live, but there was still so much to worry about. If I was just trying to survive on my own like I had been in the RV, I'd have been fine. But now things were different. We had to survive on our own now with no one else's protection. How long would we be able to keep this up? I had no clear vision for the future. I realized once more how much it meant for Dad to take us in.
タクル、大丈夫？ご飯足りた？
Tucker, are you okay? Did you get enough food?
あ、うん。
Yeah.
もう
I'm
十分だ。
明日からはもうちょっとちゃんとしたご飯作るからね。
Starting tomorrow, I'll make some better meals. I wasn't really worried about that, but I nodded anyway.
それじゃあ お腹もいっぱいになったことだし、改めまして。
Alright, now that our bellies are full, let's do this. Bruce sat up straight.
今日からここが私たち家族の家です。
From now on, this is our family's home.
なんだよ、いきなり。
What's this about?
新しい生活にあたって初心表明みたいなものよ。
It's a way of starting off our new life.
そんなの別にいらないだろ。
You don't have to do that.
あら、けじめは大切よ。
No, this is important. It was just like Kurusu, though.
さて、新しい生活を始めるにあたって一つだけ約束。
We're gonna make a promise as we start our new life here. Oh, okay.
約束？
Promise?
そう。と言っても前と同じよ。
It's the same as before, though.
家族の間で隠し事はしないこと。これだけは守ってほしいの。もう二度と家族がバラバラにならないように。
No secrets between family members. Keep this promise no matter what, so that we don't get torn apart again.
クルス。
Kurusu. Oh my god, Kurusu. You can't make this promise. Please, please, Kurusu. Don't make this stupid promise. You're like the worst at keeping this promise on the whole planet. Come on, Kurusu. It felt like an expression of her resolve to me. She never wanted me to leave her again.
わかった。
Got it, I
約
promise.
束する。
Easy for Yuto, he's not lying.
私も約束します。
I promise too. Oh, interesting. It looks like this picture, these two pictures are actually one picture. They split up with like a very, like looks like there's less of a gap than there. Maybe not? Maybe not. Oh yeah, we can't see the lamp. It looks like it's... maybe. Okay, we'll see.
タクルは？
What about you, Takur?
ああ、約束する。
Yeah, I promise.
よろしい。
Alright. I was gonna say, it looks like they're actually closer than they should be. Or they're further apart than they should be. But maybe I'm not. It took me like a second to realize they might actually just have been separated. They might have just erased the center bit. Alright. I mean, I knew they could have done that, but it wasn't clear if that was the case. At least in my head. Very good. Alright, everyone. Welcome to your new home.
お願いします。
Welcome to your new home. And thus, our new life began. Okay. I'm interested in knowing whether or not we get a new plot here. Because I'm like, this seems like it could just be the ending. Like, it could be an ultra short route.
あら、ユウトったらもう眠そう。そうよね。今日はユウトも頑張ってくれたもんね。
Here, Yuto, you look tired. That's right. You worked hard today.
それじゃあ、お風呂入ったら寝ましょうか。
Let's take a bath and get you in bed. Fortunately, as beat up as this apartment was, it had its own bath and toilet. To be fair, there aren't that many public baths left around lately. An apartment building without baths and toilets wouldn't make it. I looked at the clock and it was just past 9. It felt like a long day. Living in the same room as other people meant that you couldn't set the pace of your own day. I realized that just over these few hours. I'd lived with others before, but I'd always had my own personal space. Here, though, I didn't. If I wanted my own space, I had to leave. Of course, I couldn't ask for too much right now, and anyway, I felt kind of a peace here.
お風呂をお先にいただいたわ。あなたも入ったら？汗かいたでしょ？
I took a bath already. Why don't you take one too? You're all sweaty, right?
あ、僕はいいよ。
ダメよ。そんな汚れた体でお布団へは入らせません。
You are not fine. I'm not letting you into the futon until you're clean. Okay, Mom. I used to find Kurusu annoying at times like this. She's still annoying. Now she's extra annoying and demanding.
They're
both tired. They fell asleep the second they lay down. And I would be out of there. Fucking kids going to bed at like 8 or 6 p.m. Oh, it's awful. We never slept together on the floor like this before. Kurusu?
大丈夫よ。
It's fine.
父さんもいなくなって、この先どう生活していこうって言うんでしょ？
You were gonna ask how we're gonna survive without Dad, right?
なんで？
How?
タクルの言いたいことくらいわかるわ。 だって私はあなたの家族、お姉さんだもの。
I know what you're gonna say. I'm your family. Your big sister.
クルス。
Kurusu.
まだそう呼ぶんだね。
Still calling me
私の
that,
こと。
huh? Oh, yeah.
いいのいいの。ただできればいつかね。
Maybe if you
元の
stopped
呼び方に
lying
戻
for
ってくれ
5
たらいいな。
minutes. If you stopped lying for like 5 minutes in my life, I'd stop calling you that. You want to be called Nono? Stop lying. Jesus. I don't believe for a second that her ability is the same as Arimura's. If that's the case, it's utterly baffling. Like, her blade is completely different. She doesn't act at all like Arimura does as a defense, and she hasn't, like, stated, oh, I got a ping on this or something like that. She's kind of like, it's not accurate, and then she gives really vague. She's, like, giving vagaries as a response. It's super sketchy. I wonder what her actual power is. Because, like, she should have... Whatever. Oh well. She should have been, like, just as unaware as Arimura, because she can ping truth and lie, but... Sarika wasn't really lying, right? Like, Arimura is perfectly accurate, so she'd know if she's lying. So how does, Kurusu know more? It's gotta be something other than the truth detection. Alright. Someday let's just go back to the old beacon. That's assuming that there's a plot here. If we're just ending here, then I guess her power's that.
ごめん。とにかくね、こうやって家族みんなで力を合わせていけばきっと大丈夫。
I'm sorry.
なん
Anyway,
とかなる。
as long as we all work together, it'll be fine.
私がなんとかしてみせるわ。
No, I'll make it work out.
だから。
That's good, good. Project confidence. So, it was as if she was talking to herself. Having everyone together in the old home had been really important to Kurusu. I realize now she was probably the one who was hurt most when I left. Well, you know what? She fucking deserved it. Because she's the one who was lying, so good job. And also the one who was most nervous now.
家族。
Family, huh?
なんでもないよ。
Nothing.
おやす
Good
み。
night.
おやすみな
Good
さい
night. Would we be able to be a family again here? I almost said the words but was too embarrassed, but listening to everyone snore next to me brought me a great deal of peace.
タクル
Taku?
タクルったら
Taku,
起きなさい
wake up. It's too early, isn't it? It's too early.
しょうがないこうなったら
Fine, we'll do this the hard way.
タクル起き
Oh, Taku, wake up!
ろやっと起きた
Finally, you're up.
なんだよ
Why did she
大声出してびっくりするだろ
Let a man sleep in! God damn! Is it the weekend? We could actually check to see if 11/11 is the weekend. I'm not going to bother to check that. Let's just move on. Why did she yell? You scared me.
いつまで経ってもあなたが起きないからでしょ
You wouldn't wake up any other way, right?
だからってそ
you
ん
didn't
な
have
起
to.
こし方
What? Wait, why is Kurusu waking me up? In this room, did you forget?
タクル兄ちゃん起きるの遅い。
Taku, you're so slow getting up.
みんなとっくに起きちゃってますよ。
Everyone else got up long ago.
ああそっか
Oh, yeah, I see. That's right. We're all living here now, literally under the same roof.
それにしてもどうせ起こすならもっと優し
Didn't
く起
you
こして
try
く
and
れればいいだろ
wake me up a little more gently?
何言ってるの最初はやってたわよ
What are you talking about? I tried that at first, right? Right?
のの姉ちゃん最初はすごーく優しい声だったよ。
At first, her voice was really gentle.
それでも
And
タクルさんがな
you
か
still
な
didn't
か
wake
起きない
up?
から。
Why did I have to get up? Evidently, it was 3 versus 1.
それより朝ごはんできるからお布団片付けて用意して
Anyway, breakfast is ready. Put your futon away and get dressed.
あ僕は朝ごはん
Oh,
は
I'll skip breakfast.
ダメ
It's
朝
Kurusu.
ち
You
ゃん
can't
と食べ
do
ない
that.
と元気出ないんだから
She will literally chain you. She will literally chain you to the floor and force feed you. God, nice try, buddy. You need to eat breakfast in the morning or you won't have any energy. Come, go. I still want to sleep, but she took my futon from me. Yamazoe was looking at us as if she found something strange.
何
What?
いえ、そうしてると本当の兄弟みたいだなって。
I was just thinking you look like a real brother and sister. That's not what I was gonna say. I was gonna say they look like an old married couple.
あら、だって家族だもん。普
Of
通の
course,
こと
we're
よ。
family. Even closer, old married couple. They hate each
家
other, right?
族ですか。
Emily?
そうよ。もちろんウキちゃん、あなたも。
That's right, of course. So are you, Uki.
私も。
Yep, congratulations. You've been promoted to younger sister. Yamazoe smiled, embarrassed. Kurusu looked happy to see her that way, too. After breakfast, I used my Pokécom to look for information on the murders. I've been too busy lately to check, but I was sure there must have been some new developments. I still hadn't been able to go to the police about Sarika. Are you fucking kidding me? It's 11/11. It's 11/11. It's been 7.5 days, and he hasn't even bothered telling the cops who the killer is. Holy shit, man. 7.5 days. Like, maybe she's done? But, like, there's bodies, man. I probably should have told Shinjo already, but I just couldn't figure out why Sarika would do something like that. Bruce said she'd done it for me, but if that was true, then it meant I was basically the one who killed Yui and Dad. Again, your guilt doesn't make sense. Was it okay to make Sarika suffer for that alone? Why did Sarika think that's what I wanted anyway? Is that really what I wanted? No. Impossible.
できた。
It's done. Bruce had been playing with a roll of fabric.
何を作ってたんですか？
What were you making?
カラーボックスのところにカーテンがあった方がいいと思って。ほら、食器とかむき出しだとホコリかぶっちゃうでしょ？
Good plan. I thought it would be nice to have a curtain over the shelving, you know. We don't want to leave the dishes exposed or they get dusty.
それからこっちはドアノブとティッシュのケース。こういうちょっとしたものでもあるだけでお部屋の
This
中
is
が
for
明
the
るくなるで
doorknob
しょ？
and tissue box. Little things like this can really brighten a room, you know? Cloth for a doorknob? What? What? I'm like looking at my doorknob going, why would I want a cloth on the doorknob? Doesn't that just make it harder to open?
本当ですね。
Like wearing a pair of gloves, like wearing a slippery pair of gloves, you know, your hand's gonna slide on, whatever. Slide on the doorknob. Usually you want, like, to be able to grip it tightly. I feel like that's not a great choice, but whatever. Oh, you're right. Kurusu was steadily turning the room into a place to live. I doubt I would have ever thought about any of those things, but it was true. Having her here made this feel much more like home. Why not doing something with the walls? These walls look terrible.
私にもできるでしょうか？
Could I do that?
もちろんよ。
Of course,
教えてあ
Let's
げ
do
る
it
から
together.
一緒に作りましょう。
Okay. Okay. Yamazoe had said that we looked like brother and sister, but she and Kurusu looked like a pair of sisters too.
ユウトは何してるんだ？
One's blonde, one's platinum blonde?
勉強、
Okay.
学校の。
Studying for school.
見てやろうか。
Want some help? Good.
いいの？
Really?
まあ、たまにはな。
I guess I can do it once in a while. There was nothing for me to do here anyway, and
それじゃあここを教えて。
tell me how to do this. For now, I wanted to treasure this peaceful life. What? Hey, how often do you just like, if you have a brother and sister, how often have you actually gone to them or like, want some help with homework and they actually say yes? Seriously? Seriously? For now, you want to treasure this peaceful time. Good luck, man.
何？
What?
なんでもない。
Nothing.
なんだよ。
What? What?
だから何でもない
I
っ
said
てば。
nothing. Weirdo.
そういえばクルス、学校はいいのか？
Kurusu, don't you have to go to school today? After everything that happened and then moving on top of it all, we hadn't had time for school. Neither of us had been in a while. Of course, the school was being understanding, but we couldn't skip school forever.
もう何人事みたいに言ってるのよ。それはタクルもでしょ。
You have to go too, don't you, Tucker?
だって僕と違ってクルスには生徒会があるだろ。
You have student council and I don't, right? You can't
いつまでも休んでいられないんじゃないか。
keep missing days.
生徒会のことは川原くんに任せたから平気よ。どっちにしてももうすぐ任期も終わりだしね。
Ah, Kawahara's handling the council for me. It's fine. My term's almost up anyway.
それにこの状況で私たちだけが学校に
We
行くわ
can't
け
go to
に
school
も
and
いか
leave
ない
them
でし
here,
ょ。
can we? Yes, you can. What was your dad doing previously when he was working? Yuto goes to school. Uki can go to school. You can all be in school. That was true. It wouldn't be right to go and leave Yuto and Yamazoe behind. But I couldn't send Kurusu on her own either. Yuto was enrolled in school. Why is he not in school now? There was no telling when Sarika might come.
ねえタクル、
Tucker?
セリカのことだけど。
About Sarika.
うん。
Yeah? Hearing her name from another person's mouth made me tense. I didn't want to believe she was the killer. But the way she'd been acting, the way she'd been trying to kill Kurusu. Does Ito even know that she's the killer? Come on, man. Ito needs to know what happened. Ito needs some fucking closure. The way she'd been trying to kill Kurusu, the way she'd been acting. Those were both real.
考えてみれば私セリカのこと何も知らないの。
I thought about it and realized I don't know anything about her.
は？何言ってんだよ。
What are you talking about?
クルスだって仲良かっただろ。甘いものが好きで、グレープフルーツジュースが好きで、ちょっと天然入ってて。
You guys are... What are you talking about? You guys are friends, right? She liked sweets and grapefruit juice? She's a bit of an airhead. I think she's gonna say, I don't know anything about her family or her history. Like what school she used to go to, blah, 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 blah. Doesn't know anything about the person's past, only their present, right?
そういうことじゃなくてね。その
There we go.
住んでるところとか両親のこととか。
No, I mean like where she lives, what her parents are like. Yeah, the things that are needed for interaction outside of school.
確かセリカも地震で怪我したのよね。その時ご両親は？
Rika got hurt in the earthquake too, right? Where were her parents?
それは。
Well,
ご両親は生きているのよね。何をしている人？会ったことは？
they're alive, right? What do they do? Have you ever met them?
タクル、あなた子供の頃から知ってるんでしょ？普通それくらい付き合いが長ければ家に行ったことくらいあるものじゃない？
You've known her since she was a kid, right? Normally, if you've known someone for that long, you'll go to their house at least once or twice, right? She has an apartment building. We know where our character knows where her apartment building is. I was stunned. Sarika and I had been together for years, but I didn't know anything about her parents or her house. They'd never come to the school field day or parent-teacher meetings. She never talked about them, and I never brought it up. But they should have at least come up in conversation a few times. I didn't even remember that. In fact, I didn't even have any photos of her from when she was a kid.
少し
Yeah, that's
調
fine.
べ
I
て
don't
み
have
ない
tons
と
of
いけ
photos
ない
from
か
when I
も
was
し
a
れ
kid
ない
either.
わ。
We might need
セリカのこと。
to look into Sarika a little. Sarika might be a little bit sketchier than we think. November 11th, 2015, Wednesday. So we're just changing the scene. The date
お
hasn't
邪魔しま
changed.
す。
Excuse me.
あら新庄ちゃんいらっし
Oh,
ゃい
Shinjo, hello. Katsuko Momose smiled as Takeshi Shinjo came into her office.
あらあら相変わらず陰鬱なオーラ背負ってるわねたまには気分転
I
換し
can't
ない
believe
と
how
っ
useless our character is
て言って
being.
も
For the bullies, he's...
無理な話よね
Come on, man. You're as glum as ever, aren't you? You need to change the pace once in a while, though I guess that's not really possible, is it?
これでも内心密かにタフなハードボイルドに憧れてたりするんですがね。
Between you and me, I always wanted to be the hard-boiled detective type. Dude, it's his title's Detective Shinjo. He clearly wants... He's a police officer. That's like... Yeah, you either have, like, police officers who want power, or you have people who are like, I want to be that detective from a noir film. There's, like, only two kinds of detectives, man. There's only two kinds of, like, detectives. Alright, Shinjo was unconsciously patting his belly with his left hand. He was nursing a nasty upset stomach. Look, it's on right now. Yeah, do people actually keep pictures from when they're kids of other people? I don't really do that. Momose pointed at the TV, where a news show was doing a panel on the murders. You could probably find the same topics on every channel. Let's go over the events thus far once more. Return of the new generation madness was believed to have ended with the arrest of a suspect. Oh, Rigo Haida. Okay. However, on November 4th, the same date as the DQN puzzle murder 6 years ago, another murder took place. What's more, the young man who was arrested as a suspect suddenly began to deny all involvement yesterday. Our sources state he's declaring his innocence in regard to all the murders. Some people are saying the police may have arrested the wrong person. If they did, this is a serious issue. He's a minor after all. What's the date today? Kurusu, Miyashiro, what's the date? The date's still the 11th? Who'd they arrest? Ito? This is Ito, right? And they treated him like a murderer when he was actually innocent. Some human rights groups are already protesting. I'd expect to see more protests in the future. Just like the commentator on TV had said, the public had already turned against the police. Shinjo and the rest of the force's reputation was in the gutter. He'd be lucky if it was just damage to his reputation. At some point, he'd probably be asked to resign. Must be rough.
まったくです。これで伊藤真二が保釈済みだってことを知れた日にゃ。
And now they tell me Shinji Ito's been released. Wasn't Takeshi... Okay, I'm trying to remember. Wasn't Shinjo opposed to arresting Ito? Like, he's like, I know this guy's innocent. I don't want him jailed, but the cops took it out of his hands. I'm pretty sure that's how it went in the main route.
So,
I see. He was released.
ええ。久野里さんが手を尽くしてくれましてね。脳の機能も改善されてきました。
That's right. Kunosada did everything she could. His brain's in a much better state now.
問題は、今まで伊藤君本人が頑なに自分が犯人だと主張してたからこそ一家も取り合っていたんですが、久野里さんから彼が洗脳状態だったという最終報告が出た。
The problem is that Section 1 arrested him because he'd been insisting he was the killer, but Kunosato says he was brainwashed.
しかも過去の事件の微細証拠物件と伊藤君の DNA を照らし合わせると、伊藤君を犯人とするには噛み合わない部分が多すぎる。
And we've matched the microscopic evidence from the past cases with Ito's DNA. There's just too much that doesn't make sense.
でも保釈だなんて思い切ったわね。もしことが公になってマスコミがそのことを嗅ぎつけでもしたら、それこそ
Actually, is that a new piece? Yeah, microscopic evidence is analyzed with tools such as gas chromatography and electron microscopes, primarily used to refer to things like DNA, hair, fingerprints, blood, semen, footprints, and tire tracks left at a crime scene. Microscopic evidence is admissible in a court of law. Let's see. Edmund Locard formulated Locard's exchange principle, which states that every criminal will both bring something to a crime scene and take something away. This principle became the foundation of modern forensic science. Alright, that makes sense.
まずいんじゃないの？
I want to make sure I understood what they meant by microscopic stuff. Alright, yeah, it was a bold move. If the media finds out, won't you be in trouble?
その懸念でしたら当面は大丈夫かと。
I don't think we'll have to worry about that for a while.
というと？
Oh, what do you mean?
伊藤君はまだ病院に入院中ですから保護観察中に見えるはずです。
Ito is still in the hospital. It should appear that we're still keeping him under psychiatric observation.
あ
I see.
だいぶ良くなりましたがまだ脳に異常な負荷がかかっているのは事実です。
He's a lot better, but his brain's still in a state of extreme stress.
あ、異常な負荷ね。
Extreme stress, huh?
俺には専門的なことはよくわからないんですが以前はとても正気を保っていられないような数値だったそうで。
Oof. I'm not a specialist, so I don't know the details, but the numbers were bad enough before that he couldn't possibly have been sane.
まあそんなわけでこれ幸いとばかりに面会謝絶ってことにして
So
ます。
fortunately, we're able to refuse any visitors. He's not mentally stable enough. That's kind of works out for them, all right.
なるほどね。
I see.
ついでだから新庄ちゃんもちょっと入院してくれば？
While you're at it, why don't you spend some time in a hospital too?
相当疲れてるみたいよ。休んでないでしょ？
Yeah, so he didn't want him arrested, as Shinjo just restated. He didn't actually want him arrested, despite the evidence. So he's probably gonna look okay. I think he'll look okay. If he gets fired, he's gonna... I'd be pretty tilted if I was like, please don't do this, and then you get fired because they did that over your objections. You look pretty tired. You haven't gotten any rest, have you?
確かに。
You're right.
せめて人間ドックにでも。
I should at least get a physical... Shinjo rubbed his stomach without laughing. His phone went off in his pocket. He took out his phone and looked at the name on the screen.
宮代君だ。
Oh, it's Miyashiro.
あら、
Oh my.
もしもし新庄だ。
Hello? This is Shinjo.
どうした？
What is
何
it?
かあっ
Did
たの
something
か？
happen? It seemed like he wasn't gonna get that physical anytime soon. Alright, is this where we tell him the truth?
いらっし
Welcome.
ゃお主か。
It's you. I went to the place Shinjo suggested and was greeted by the same rude waitress as always.
ぼっちか。
Are you here alone?
いや、
Oh,
その
I'm waiting for someone.
待ち合わせを。
I looked around and saw Shinjo in the back. He was looking out the window and rubbing his stomach. I nodded to the waitress and went to sit with him. Alright, Shinjo's here.
ああ、
Poor
来たな。
Shinjo. Man's gonna have a heart attack in like 5 minutes. Oh, you're here.
その、この前はどうもお世話になりました。
Thanks for your help with me. So are we finally gonna tell him like a week later who the killer is?
ああ、そういうのはいい。それより話ってのは？
Yeah, don't worry about it. What did you want to talk about? Even now, I wasn't sure if I should tell Shinjo about Sariko. Shinjo frowned.
こっちとら商売繁盛でね。仕事が山積みで正直時間が足り
I'm
ないん
really
だよ。
busy these days, honestly.
こう
I
し
don't
て
even...
過ぎていく一秒一秒の積み重ねだって惜しいわけなんだが。
I don't have enough time to do anything. I don't even have a second to waste.
すみません。
Sorry. I looked at Shinjo's cup and saw it was filled with milk. From the way he was rubbing his stomach, he might be feeling sick. I couldn't call him all the way out here and then just tell him it was nothing.
ですね。
Well,
その、
how to ask.
その、理由は聞かずに、尾上セリカのことを調べてほしいって言ったら、やってもらえますか？
If I ask you to look into Sarika Onoe without asking me why, would you do it?
お前さんを？
Onoe? He looked at me appraisingly. A moment later, he shook his head a little. He'd grown a little chin
君
stubble.
と尾上さんの間に何があったのかはよく知らないが、こちらもつい先日、狼少年にこっぴどく痛めつけられたばかりだ。理由もなしに警察を動かせと言われてもな。
I don't know what happened between you and Onoe, but I just got bit badly by a boy who cried wolf. I can't be using police resources without asking why. The boy who cried wolf. It was obvious who he was talking about. I'd seen on the news Ito had suddenly switched to proclaiming his innocence. The festivals had continued on 2chan's news board ever since the first report, and the threads were still popping up even now. I can imagine things were tense at the police station right now.
そういうのは本来探偵やら更新所に頼むべきことだろ。
You should really be going to a detective agency for that.
それはおっしゃる通りだと思います。
You're right, I think.
だったら理由くらいは話してもらおう
At
か。
least tell me why. What should I do? Even if Shinjo did look into Sarika without asking me questions, if he found something, the result would be the same. But I still couldn't bring myself to tell him from my own lips that Sarika might be the killer.
しょうがないな。
Yeah, that's pretty rough. He's like, fine. Shinjo saw I wasn't gonna say anything inside.
尾上セリカの身の上を調べりゃいいんだな。
You want me to look into Sarika Onoe's background, right?
やってもらえるんですか？
You'll do it?
乗りかかった船だ。それに今は可能性があるなら何でもやっておきたい。
I've come this far, and right now I need to grab onto any possibility I've got.
理由は？
You're not asking why?
そんなもん今さ
Doesn't
ら
matter
ど
at
うと
this
でもいい
point.
さ。
My reputation's
潰れ
already
る
gone
面
to
目を
hell.
全部潰しちまったしな。
That's awkward. He didn't even want this to happen, and the arrest happened. Oh well.
ただし、もしそれによって何か疑わしいことが出てきたら止められるという保証はないぞ。
But if I find something suspicious, I can't guarantee I'll be able to shut things down. You're okay with that, right? I could tell from the way he spoke he wasn't joking.
はい。
Yeah. There was no turning back now. I said it aloud so I could hear it too.
ただいま。
I'm back. I'm back.
おかえり。
Welcome home. Kurusu welcomed me with a smile when I opened the door.
タクル兄ちゃん、おかえり。
I'm betting Sarika hasn't killed anyone lately. I'm betting she might have, What would I do if I was Sarika? Ideally, you would flee the country, but you speak Japanese and not English. But you can read minds? I don't know. That's pretty tough. All she can do is read minds. She probably can't just conjure money for an airport ticket or threaten people effectively. Since she doesn't have a way to do anything other than bluff her way through things. Welcome home, Taku.
おかえりなさい。
Yuto was sitting at his desk doing schoolwork. Yamazoe seemed to be studying too. Both of them looked up at the same time. I'd lived with other people at Albadorum, but we'd all had our own rooms. It felt a little weird to hear welcome home as soon as I walked through the door. It wasn't a bad feeling at all.
頼まれてたのこれでいいんだよな。
This is what you wanted, right?
ありがとう。
Thanks. I handed Kurusu the ingredients for dinner that she'd asked me to pick up before I left.
何？
What's up?
なんでもない。
Never mind. Kurusu didn't ask where I'd been going when I left, but I was sure she could guess. She probably wanted to know how it had gone, but she wasn't doing it for my sake.
それでよかったんだよな。
I got everything on the list, right? Did I miss something?
頼まれてた買い物
The。stuff you asked me to buy?
こんにゃくとお豆腐とあれねえ、
Yeah,
タクル、これは
Konnyaku, tofu. Huh? What's this, Taku?
ユウトたちだってたまにはお菓子くらい食べたいだろ。
The kids probably want snacks once in a while, right? Right?
お菓子？
Snacks? Snacks? Did someone say snacks? Yuto stood up when he heard the word snacks. His face broke into a huge grin when he saw the value-sized pack of yatkats. Yatkats? These are Kit Kats, right? Yatkats are Kit Kats.
やった、チョコレートだ。ありがとう、タクル兄ちゃん。ほら、ユキ姉ちゃん、チョコだよ、チョコ。チョコ好き？
Yes, chocolate. Thanks, Takuru. Look, Uki, it's chocolate. Chocolate. Do you like chocolate?
うん。
Yeah.
ねえ、のの姉ちゃん、チョコ食べ
No,
て
no,
も
no,
い
no.
い？
Can I have some chocolate?
お勉強が終わったらね。
Once you're done studying.
やった
Oof.
早く勉強終わらそう、ウ
Let's
キ
hurry
姉
up
ちゃ
and
ん。
finish, Uki. Okay. Is Uki going to school now? The two of them sat down at the desk and began to study even harder than before. No, it's the same day. It's still the 11th.
もうダメよ、タクル。この先私たちの生活もどうなるかわからないんだから無駄遣いしちゃう。
Come on, Takuru, you know better than that. We don't know when we're gonna need money from now on. You can't waste any.
わかってるけど たかがチョコレートだろ。
I know, but it's just a little bit of chocolate.
たかがの積み重ねがそのうち大きく。
All those little things are piled up, and then... Ruth stopped and shook her head.
そうね。タクルの言う通りかもしれないわね。何事もダメじゃ息が詰まっちゃう。
Maybe you're right. We'll go nuts if we try to deny ourselves everything. Well, the good news is rice is insanely cheap. So if nothing else, you can make really cheap rice dishes.
こういう時だものね。少しくらい心の余裕がないと。
Times are tough. We need at least a little something to keep us going. Is it now going to be like a
Kurusu.
Is it now going to be like financial struggles? Like a financial drama? I don't even know how to try.
何？
What is it?
いや、
No,
なんでもな
it's
い。
nothing. It seems she'd changed since she'd come here. I was gonna say that, but I stopped.
変なの。
You're silly. When she smiled, it was a little more peaceful than the smile I was used to seeing. Maybe I thought I'd known everything about Kurusu, but I hadn't known anything at all. I got the call from Shinjo that night.
信じたくはないだろうが、まず間違いない。
I'm sure you don't want to believe this, but there's no doubt about it.
そうですか。
I see.
わかりました。
After I heard what Shinjo had to say, I staggered back to the apartment. When I arrived, Kurusu had just gotten out of the bath and was drying her hair with a towel.
タクル？どこ行ってたの？お風呂から上がったらいなくなってるからちょっと心配し。
Takuru? Where were you? You weren't here when I got out of the bath. I was a little worried.
タクル？
Takuru?
尾上が
Onoe? I couldn't say the rest of it. Yuto and Yamazoe were asleep, but I didn't want to talk about it in front of them.
タクル？
Takuru. Ruth stood up, slowly walked over, and held me tight. She slipped her hands around my back and patted me gently like a child. It felt like she had been doing this all the time lately. But for now, I just wanted to let her do it.
クルス、
Here's Onoe's.
尾上が
Onoe's.
尾上は
I'm afraid if you want to find out what happened to Onoe, you're gonna have to tune in next time.